9BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big-timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest fuss-gag hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Alan. Of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
A very good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into the Sports Bar, Rochester's only local sports talk show. We're glad you're with us and listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950, The Fan Rochester, and the free to download Odyssey app, and on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester as well. I am Mike Danger. That is Gene Battaglia.
I'm a little disappointed in you. You are always the guy who once was shorts until it snows, and you're breaking out the flannel today?
Chilly today.
Yeah, it's a little chilly.
Chilly.
You just save the flannel for
We've been spoiled, pal. I mean, like the last few weeks, has it rained once? We've had like 60, 70 degrees, sunny skies. We've been spoiled. Woke up this morning, went on the dad run. I'm like, ooh, this feels different. This feels like fall. Feels like flannel weather. Broke out the flannel for today.
Did you forget, though, that we have the opposite of the Dave Letterman studios, where it's not cold in our studio? I'm not complaining. I love our new studio, but it gets a little toasty in here.
It does. But we can remedy that quickly by cracking that door open, the studio door open. I mean, let's face it, we're the only people here that are live in the afternoon, so we can actually get away with that and not have any interference from anybody walking in the hallways. It's it's a blessing and a curse. So I'm not too worried about that. And, yeah, it felt... Well, it felt like fall again this morning when I got up, and I'm like, ooh, flannel weather, okay, let's go. And plus, it's going to be a long day for me. I'm going to be out later tonight. I've got to pick up my daughter from the airport. So, long day, going to have to experience all the different range of temperatures that we're going to have from early morning to late night. Flannel for me today, Gino. Going with the flannel.
There we go.
And honestly, if I could recalibrate and have my wardrobe look exactly like it did in the mid-'90s, I would probably take that. As I think most of us would. If it was socially acceptable for you to walk around like you did when you were a student at Fordham, would you still do it? If it was socially acceptable.
It was socially acceptable.
I mean, it really doesn't even matter. You should just be able to do whatever you want to do. Like, if I want to dress like a hippie from the 60s every day, I mean, you get judged for it, but who cares?
I mean, it depends. The honest answer is no, because when you were kind of growing up, you looked at clothes in a way like, hey, I like to work hard so I can afford nice things like clothes.
Right.
And somehow that kind of felt, people still want their material things, but I don't think clothes and fashion are right up there where they
for men, it might be different than it is for women. For women, I mean, we know women who never wear the same outfit twice. You will never see them wearing the same outfit
I met one
twice.
of them, yes, that frequently like to wear something new had to be. I'm like, wow, that would be.
I don't know what that life is like.
Yeah.
I have like a rotation of maybe, when you break it down, a rotation of maybe 30 things, maybe. I don't know. It's just not. I would do the Steve Jobs thing, honestly. Like, just give me a closet full of black T-shirts or. And jeans, and that will be that. It's one less thing I have to worry about every day.
Is that why doctors wear the same thing? They're just like, okay, let's go. Like, they do it for sanitary reasons, but like, hey, let's just kind of forget it.
I don't like to think about it. I just let me just get this going. Let's go. Let's pick it up. We got a great show lined up for you this afternoon. We're going to pick it up with Corbin Smith, Locked on Seahawks. It's been a second since we've talked Seahawks in the sports bar, but of course, with the Bills traveling to Seattle on Sunday, Corbin Smith will be our guide to the Pacific Northwest, and we'll find out everything we need to know about the Seattle Seahawks.
Can the Seahawks downshift in this game? Do they have the ability to ground and pound like the Ravens did and just go right at Well, I don't know. Insert here who's going to be at linebacker. I'm not sure at this point. Also, on the other side of the ball, the Leslie Frazier factor. I mean, they made a trade at linebacker, but it still is going to be Dotson at the middle position here. But the Seattle defense, I don't feel like we all don't know anything about here, basically. Maybe you're a Seahawk fan. You could tell us. We're going to talk to the expert out in Seattle. Corbin will be joining us at about 4:30 today.
Josh Allen earlier today took to the podium and spoke a little bit about the pressure that Seattle's defense can provide.
Yeah, I think they bring it from different areas. They give you different looks. I think they've got really good checks in there, especially in their empty calls where, it's kind of simulated pressures where you're not really hot. You've got enough guys to block, but they're bringing them from the other side that you're going to. So, again, just making sure that we're keen on talking and communication and making sure we're protecting ourselves. And then just, again, trying to throw it to our guys and get the ball in their hands moving and let them go get some rack.
This is just words. Are you really talking up there?
I really
I don't think you're talking.
I think
up
there
in
are
Seattle
some Bills
yet.
fans though that if I play that 25-second clip of Josh Allen again, that they are going to be aroused. I mean, like that is just Josh Allen speaking the language of quarterback.
Yeah.
And there are some fans out there that when they hear that, they can't hide their enthusiasm or excitement for the quarterback. I'll just take his word for it. Josh has been studying. He knows what they do and what they're capable of, and he's going to be ready for it on Sunday.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
Really good defense, and they do this. Like we should, a good bit at the end of the year would be play something like that. Okay, what opponent is he talking about? Save that away for January. Like, what opponent is it? That was the Seattle week.
Right. Yeah, because he doesn't mention anybody by name.
No.
If you mention somebody by name, it's like, oh, that guy's notorious. Witherspoon, I think, is probably the biggest name on that defense for Seattle that could pose some problems for the Bills' defense. But overall, as a unit, yeah, they could be problematic for Josh Allen. But at least he's been doing his study and he'll let us all know what. I got to hear it again. I got to hear it again. This is unbelievable.
There's nothing in there that says Seattle, correct?
This is what Josh Allen had to say about Seattle's defense and their pressures.
Yeah, I think they bring it from different areas. They give you different looks. I think they've got really good checks in there, especially in their empty calls where, it's kind of simulated pressures where you're not really hot. You've got enough guys to block, but they're bringing them from the other side that you're going to. So, again, just making sure that we're keen on talking and communication and making sure we're protecting ourselves. And then just, again, trying to throw it to our guys and get the ball in their hands moving and let them go get some rack.
This is great. It's fantastic.
We're trying to throw it to our guys as opposed to their guys.
That's fantastic. I love that clip so much. Josh, are you ready for this weekend's opponent, the New England Patriots?
Yeah, I think they bring it from different areas. They give you different looks. I think they've got really good checks in there, especially in their empty calls where, it's kind of simulated pressures. Where
he's come such a long way in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
It's fun to see how he's evolved as a quarterback, as a communicator with the media, as kind of like this influencer, this star, this superstar.
All right, that's my idea. Like when we get to the end of the season, we want to look back. We're going to invite the Dandalorian to hang back, and you and I will do like a best of 5 here. Like, okay, guys, what game was this from?
Yeah.
No idea.
Josh, how are you dealing with ordering your favorite wings while you're in Buffalo?
Yeah, I think they bring it from different areas. They give you different looks. I think they've got really good checks in there, especially in their empty calls. Where,
Yeah, I think you could apply that answer to pretty much anything in his life.
Yeah.
Not just the opponent that he's facing on the field in any given week.
Josh, I hear you just signed on with a new bank.
Different areas. They give you different looks. I think they've got really good checks in there, especially in their empty calls where,
Yeah, he's got it down. A great non-answer with just the right amount of buzzwords that you can apply that answer to any week, any opponent, hell, any part of his life. Fantastic. He knows how to deal with the media. Speaking of, Dan Fates, also with the Buffalo Bills, covering the Buffalo Bills with 13 Wham Sports at BuffaloPlus.com. He's going to stop by here in about 15 minutes.
Who was not at practice yesterday because he was at the Rainbow Room.
You had to tell me what the Rainbow Room was.
You've never heard of the Rainbow Room?
I feel like I've heard of it, but
Yeah.
Like, is the Rainbow Room in L.A.? Is it in New York? I feel like every major city has a place called the Rainbow Room, and I don't know
well,
what
when
it's
you're
about.
watching the opening for Saturday, if you watch Saturday Night Live, that's Rockefeller, and you see NBC Studios, and then you'll see right there in the marquee Rainbow Room, and that's always like the
So it's not Radio City Music Hall. It's Rockefeller Center.
correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with 30 Rockefeller Center. I'm familiar with that and the surrounding area there with the skating rink and all the different studios. Oh, that's where they shoot the Today Show, and Central Park is a couple blocks away. But I guess I never really connected that the Rainbow Room was a thing.
Yeah.
But that's up at the top of the Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
So you have to go inside, up, and that's where it's at. So I never went inside the Rockefeller. You just walk around.
Look, if you are trying to impress somebody, you go to the Rainbow Room. Well, that's for Dan's idea of the Rainbow Room. You have that, and you have, what is the one? Now I'm drawing a blank. Tavern on the Green.
Oh, I've
Central
been there.
Park, yeah.
Yeah, I've had I had a brunch there, I think. Was it a brunch? It was a brunch. Yeah, I had a brunch there. I don't know. It didn't blow me away. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool in the middle of Central Park, but whatever. Food was just so-so. Like, it didn't. Not impressed by Tavern in the Green. Does that make me a snob? I guess that makes me a bit of a snob.
No, that's your. I thought you would be just wide-eyed. I'm from Minnesota. I can't. I don't know why I'm giving Mike Danger this voice. But
Never.
Wow, look at
I've
this.
never talked like
I've
that.
never heard of the Rainbow Room.
I've
here.
never, ever.
What is this Rainbow Room?
I know I might be
about?
dressed like a rube today, but I've never talked like one. My God.
Wow. Where's that Radio City Music Hall?
Okay. All right, pal. Dan Fates, fresh from the Rainbow Room, joins us at 3:25. We'll get today's practice report from him. And what do we know after today's practice? Not much more than what we knew yesterday when they didn't practice.
See, the way, like, we're used to training camp here in Rochester, here's the way it works during practice. Okay, everybody in. All right, you get to watch the players stretching, and we're done with stretching.
Get out.
Leave.
Yeah.
And so the storyline today, well, what can you learn from players stretching? Really nothing, right? You can learn, though, who's not there. Apparently, Terrell Bernard wasn't there for the portion that was open to the media. So do we connect dots here because he was excused yesterday for personal reason? Is that the case? Or, I don't know, was just in the bathroom a long time. I don't know.
It could have been. I mean, look, we don't know, and it could be it could be a legit personal thing. There could be something going on with his family. We hope he's okay. The injury aside, if he's missing a couple of days for personal reasons, you would imagine that that's an excused absence. There's probably something significant happening in his life, and you hope that everything is okay. But at this point, having now missed today's practice and being excused yesterday, you have to wonder, is he going to be available on Sunday? And I don't know that I would say he is.
Yeah, it's if he's practicing Friday and he's a full go on Friday, you can rest assured he'll be out there. The one thing I want to kind of point out is, and again, maybe we'll ask Dan here, like, what is a timeline for Matt Milano to return? It's not like Dorian Williams has been bad. He's been okay. But there's been some players where you're like, particularly like last week against Tennessee, like, you bid on that. That's his tendency, right? You see the athleticism. You see sometimes he's not in the right spot. That's been kind of a bugaboo against the run here this week. And I'm just wondering, are they going to slow play the Milano return? Well, like they did with Von Miller, like they did with Tre'Davious White.
I think to myself, well, a couple things. One, I'm more concerned with when Matt Milano does return, what does Matt Milano look like? Because he hasn't played in over a year, right? It'll be well over a year since the last time he played meaningful football. And that's coming off of two fairly significant injuries. What does he look like? Does he still look like the same player? We know that he probably knows better than anybody where he needs to be, but is he capable of getting there on time? Is he capable of being the physical player that he was? Because even in training camp, there were moments where people were like, he's still kind of, he's not, it's not that he's favoring it, but you
could tell he's like kind of, I remember there was one time he was looking in, testing it out. And
Yeah. And then it also makes me think, and this is kind of relevant to a conversation we were having earlier this week with the NBA getting underway. I wonder about load management in the NFL. Like, I think For all the talk that the NBA has about load management, all the investigations, and now that the league is investigating Joel Embiid's absence from the lineup, and Adam Silver really has to kind of get his arms around this because fans will now no longer trust your product when players, star players that you're paying good money to watch, aren't showing up when they could very easily show up and making claims and demands like, I'm not playing on a back-to-back. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to play 2 nights in a row. So Silver's got to get his arms around that. Load management has been a thing in the NBA for a while, and I think it's a thing that universally fans don't like. And I think it happens in the NFL as well. I think it happens in all sports. I just think they're more they have better PR around their load management.
Well, okay, so for instance, it's the player wants out. Devontae Adams wants out, and that's the reason he's not playing. We all can kind of read between the lines that hamstring injury, and then, oh my gosh, the hamstring feels better.
That's right.
So we're not criticizing the player and the team when there's some sort of...
I think it's a lot harder. Like, we question injuries in the NBA all the time, right? Like, we're doing it now with Embiid. How could he be missing time? He was just playing in the Olympics. What's he ramping up from? What are we talking about here? He played in the Olympics, but he can't play opening night? We don't question those injuries in the NFL or the NHL because we watch the physicality of the game constantly, and we imagine that on any given play, they're injured. Oh, there's an injury on that play. They're going to get up, and they're going to be dinged, or they're going to be slow to get up, or it's just there's a violence that exists with those two sports specifically that I think doesn't exist in the NBA or even in baseball, where when you hear of an injury, then you think to yourself, okay, I'm sure you're injured, but at the same time, load management is a thing in all of these sports.
I'm having trouble coming up with the example, though, because in the NFL, those are all kind of contract-ish situations that I don't know drop into the load management bucket. The Bill Slow playing injury returns. Okay, that's worth a discussion.
The optics of that, I think, are great for the Buffalo Bills, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that you as an organization aren't going to force a player back on the field until they are 100% ready, even if the player wants to go, I think makes the organization look very credible and appealing to outsiders who may eventually end up playing for you.
I also think there is in the NFL, by and large, we want the players to make money. We recognize, hey, these contracts are not guaranteed, and what they're sacrificing down the road, get your money while you can. Like Lamar Jackson a couple years ago, it's playoff time.
Didn't play.
Could he have played?
Yeah.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I think so, too, but he was due to be a free agent, or his contract was up, I should say, and regardless.
Nobody called that load management, though.
Nobody did, but it wasn't technically load management. That was Lamar, the pendulum going the other way. When these guys get paid in the NBA, oh, come on, really? You're Joel Embiid, you're making all this money. Ben Simmons being mention that to a Nets fan or a Sixers fan, the words Ben Simmons. I mean, there are examples like that of guys that are cashing paychecks that are guaranteed in the NBA, where in the NFL they're not.
Yeah, I get that. There are times in the NFL where I kind of scratch my head and I think, why is that player out for this amount of time with insert soft tissue injury here? Or, is there such a thing as load management in the NFL, but it's just disguised because we don't question the injuries given how violent the game is versus the NBA or Major League Baseball because they're just less violent, less contact. Injuries certainly happen in both sports. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but clearly there's a load management issue in the NBA, and I think it happens everywhere. Back to Matt Milano. I'm not saying that they're load managing Matt Milano. My concern is, what does he look like when he comes back? Even if they do what we expect them to do, which is ramp him up, which they do with all their guys as they're returning from IR, when he does eventually get on the field, whether it's later this year or beyond, what does he look like? Does he look like the same Matt Milano?
There's another storyline, too, that'll be coming up next week that completely evaporated out of my mind because not having Von Miller here has been a nothing. This will be the last game the Bills are going to be without him on the.
This is the fourth of the 4-game suspension.
Already, yeah, fourth.
Wow.
Oh, who cares?
It really, I mean, like, honestly, did you even realize he was gone? No. Nobody did. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Well, who knows? Maybe coming back after 4 weeks off, he's spry and well rested and able to contribute in a way like we saw earlier this year, but even better. Could that be possible?
Sure.
No?
Or is he just hanging out in Texas all month?
Well, could be doing that as well. Don't know. Let's get Dan Fates on with us. We got a lot to unpack here as we get ready for Seattle on Sunday. Don't know a lot about the Seahawks, other than they like to pass the ball. They lead the league in passing. Learn more about the defense. Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks is going to join us next hour as well. But first, BuffaloPlus.com and 13 Wham Sports' Dan Fates stops by the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Next on The Fan.
FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester. Your smart speaker is great at setting reminders, but can it set the mood for a big Bills game? Ask it to play 95.7 The Fan and turn your home into the ultimate sports haven. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills just wrapping up practice as the injury report coming out right now and taking a look at this. Once again, Terrell Bernard was a DNP, did not practice today. Josh Allen on the Seattle Seahawks defensive personnel.
Couple really good corners. Obviously familiar face in T-Dot. He's playing really good football. I think their D-line is playing very, very solid defense as well. Tough team to run against. They've been a high-effort group. They've been making some plays, so we're going to have our hands full.
Dan Bates, 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus, joining us next. We'll talk some Bills Seahawks here in the Sports Bar. Week 8 of the NFL season, it begins tonight. It's the Rams and the Vikings. Syracuse football also in action tonight. The Orange, 5-1 on the season. They play at Pittsburgh. The Hammocks beating Cleveland 6-1. The same two teams in Ohio coming up on Saturday night. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader. The Fan Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Let's check in with Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. Freshman trip, New York City, spending time in, what's it called, the Rainbow Room?
The Rainbow Room.
Yeah.
How was it, Dan?
Fancy. It was awesome. I have a tendency to make a lot of things about myself and have hot takes. It was really cool to be there alongside Mike Catalana, who has always been a Hall of Famer in our book, but now it is official. Really cool. He gets inducted into the New York State Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Just a special day to see mentor, friend, guy that called my highlights in high school growing up here. He's the institution. It was really cool to see him, and they put on a really good event, really special. So that was a lot of fun to go to New York City and hang out there in the Rainbow Room on top of Rockefeller Plaza.
Did Catalana well up?
No, he didn't. And you want to know what? The guy is such a pro. Jenna and I are tearing up. His mother's there. She's tearing up. Family and friends. His daughters are there. His wife. It was so cool. And again, you've probably, if you haven't, he's a pro at emceeing events, and he just had the entire room in the palm of his hands as he gave his acceptance speech. So very cool. All the people, he thanked everybody he worked with, everybody that he wished could have been there, but obviously couldn't make it there. But it was awesome. There's no other way to describe it. Long day, 6 a.m. flight into New York City, 10:30 flight out. Long day, worth it though.
Hey, Dan, I'm thinking about this Bills team in 2024, and I don't want to compare them to the Dolphins of 2023, but so far they look like the Dolphins of 2023 in that they beat up on the teams that they should beat up on, but they struggle against the teams that are good, that we know are good. Houston is good. Sure. Baltimore is good. What do we have with Seattle? Is Seattle really going to be one of these? It doesn't feel like it's a test, but it feels like it would be a test. Like if you're the Bills and you want to be considered a Super Bowl contender, you should be able to handle Seattle. What are your thoughts on this week's opponent?
Yeah, I think obviously they ran into a buzzsaw in Baltimore. If you talking about beating up on bad teams, losing to the two times they kind of stepped up into their weight class. Maybe they were punching down, obviously, against Arizona, against Miami, and things like that. But that Houston game, they were tied late. So we can't say that they got their doors blown off in Houston. And I think Baltimore was just a buzzsaw of a spot. They took care of the Jets. And in this spot here, I said it earlier this week, and I've thought about it more and more. I like this Seattle team. I really do. I think it's been so hard for us to erase the stink from the Jets off of Geno Smith. And playing out there on the West Coast, you don't really watch a ton of Seahawks games. They got a fun offense, a really fun offense. They can run the ball. Obviously, I know Metcalf is injured right now. It's unlikely that he will play on Sunday. But I was telling Jenna this earlier this week, and we were doing one of our videos, and I said, Geno Smith is going to be the second best quarterback this team has faced this year. And I know everybody's like, what? And I go, I thought C.J. Stroud, Geno, then I said Lamar. I needed to clarify my remarks because what I meant was true passers of the football. When it comes to purely throwing, Geno is, I think, a top 10 quarterback at throwing the football. I'm not saying he's a top 10 player. Lamar is a top 3 player in the entire NFL. He has MVP awards to go along with it. But when it comes to making a throw, I think Geno Smith can throw the ball with the best of them right now. And when people kind of push back and I clarify, they're like, oh, it makes sense. Geno Smith leads the NFL in passing yards. Like, this isn't like this is just a fluke, and this isn't 2 weeks into a season. This guy is playing at a very high level. They have a potent offense with tons of weapons with Jackson Smith and Jigma and Tyler Lockett, who has been playing in his 37th year in the NFL. It's very impressive. They have Kenneth Walker. Like, they can move the ball. They can score points. Like, this is not going to be an ugly football game in the sense of another, in my opinion, a 20-17 slugfest, like slog. Like, this is going to be a high-scoring game. The Seahawks have been dealing with injuries on their defensive end, on the defensive side, but I think this is a pretty good football team.
Well, I'm thinking the same way here, Dan, because if that's the case, is this not ultimately the game where, hey, the offense, we've seen it, but we really, the Jacksonville game aside, because that was really weird, but for a full 60 minutes in this game, and also I'm curious to see how this 3 wide receiver now set evolves with Amari Cooper. Your thoughts on what you saw there in that first game against Tennessee?
I think Amari Cooper, for as limited as his knowledge was of the playbook and being in the offense and only getting really, 3.5 days of actual practice time, and kind of things like that, I thought he was impressive. What I thought was even more impressive was what we were all hoping for, and Bills fans were hoping for, in the sense of Amari Cooper instantly made every wide receiver better. He just made everybody more comfortable in their spot. We saw that with Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid. Like, defenses had to gravitate towards number 18 because it's a true number one. That's what a true number one does. That's why, for the most part, they're very expensive. You have to draft them high, or you have to trade for them at an extremely high cost. So we were talking about it on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Like, when do you think that we'll get to see the full repertoire of Amari Cooper? Like, when does he fully become assimilated in the offense? Those are big words that I just used there. But the fact of, I thought maybe fully, maybe not until the bye, like maybe not for another month. But I think each week we're going to get to see more and more. And the true tactician, the precise route runner, the professional wide receiver that just knows what to do. He can get a little help from Keon Coleman when he doesn't know exactly what to do. But I think that this is where the Bills can run the ball. They are still a physical team. And that's why I kind of shrugged my shoulders a little bit when Danger's like, these are kind of like the Dolphins of 2023, in the sense of this is a more physical team than a Miami team. Like, they can still run the ball down your throat. And now that you have wide receivers in positions in the depth chart where they should be, I think it makes them a more complete and a possibly more explosive offense, which is what we saw for 3 quarters. And Gene, I get it. Slow starts. That's all we've heard all week. That's all we've been talking about all week. But I don't really care. Would I love for the Bills to get off the faster starts? Sure, fans would too, and I'm sure McDermott and Allen would say the same thing. But I'm always constantly impressed by the adjustments that this team has made, both offensively and defensively, as the game's going on. And this isn't just a one-off for this season. They have done this under McDermott's tenure, of that they give up a lot of opening drive touchdowns, and then you're always like, oh boy, and then they give up 3 or 6 or 7 more points the rest of the game, and you're like, oh, they settled in. So I'm not overly concerned about the slow starts. I want them to start better and bigger, as they play better teams, because it's tough to fall behind 14-0 to a Baltimore. It's tough to fall behind 10 to Houston and things like that. But this team is really good at making in-game adjustments.
What about the injury report? The big name on there that we're circling is Terrell Bernard, and we've seen this already this season. There have been games where Bernard has missed, but how concerning would that be for the Bills' defense if Bernard can't get out on the field at all this week and into Sunday? Very
concerning. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat that. We have seen what life is like without Terrell Bernard on the field for the Bills, and it's not pretty. It's kind of like the offense without Khalil Shakir. It just seems like it's missing a piece that makes everybody around them better. Noah Fant can eat up the middle of the field for Seattle. He's had some nice games this season. I think that Baltimore exposed the spine of the Bills' defense that can be weak. And I think the safeties have played better the last 2 weeks, and I've been a constant defender of Rapp and Hamlin so far this season, they're not good enough to make up for backup linebackers in front of them. So when the linebackers are exposed, the safeties get exposed, and that kind of makes the Bills defense extremely vulnerable. So if Terrell Bernard can't go, it's going to need to be a pretty massive performance, in my opinion, by the defensive line to kind of their job to the gap integrity, their job to eat up blocks, because I like Valen Spector. I don't like him starting games. And from what, Terrell Bernard and the saga that was kind of on the sidelines when I was down there, he was writhing in pain with the ankle. We know he had the ankle injury last year. He tried to come back and play through it. He was running on the sidelines. He's jumping up and down. He's trying to do everything he can to kind of talk his way onto the field last game, back on the field with trainers. And then when he walked off the locker room, like it wasn't a pretty walk. Like he had a hitch in his giddy up just walking. So the fact that he hasn't practiced the first 2 days this week, I know yesterday was along with the ankle injury, it was also personal reason, but not practicing today raises my level of concern very high. Missing the first 2 days of first two practices of a week. That case this year for the Bills, the only player that's played that case is Khalil Shakir. If you've missed the first 2 days, it seems like you haven't played for everybody else in this Bills roster this season.
Yeah, just update everybody. He was the only one, along with Curtis Samuel. Those are the only two. Everybody else was full or limited today. We're talking to Dan Fates, 13 Wham, and Buffalo Plus joining us at the outside position, because I think this is also going to be big here too. If you're going to be facing, Walker in that running game with Charbonnet, Dorian Williams. Your thoughts on what you've seen of Williams, and what is your best guess here as to when we might see Matt Milano return, Dan?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I'm probably not the most versed to answer that. I don't know. I think you're constantly just hoping that it's the golden ticket that you'll get towards the end of the year. Obviously, we saw with Bernard had the pec strain. He only missed, 2-3 games. Obviously, it was a tear with Milano. So who knows how long that takes. Daquan Jones tore his pec last year in the London game. He was able to come back. I think it was week 18. If not, it was the playoffs. And talking to him this year at training camp, like he was not nearly where he needed to be. Like he was just gutting it out. But like the pec is so much strength, like that, like it's so important, and to not be able to shed blocks and things like that. So like, I think you'll see him back at some point, but I still think you're a month plus away from seeing Milano back. And then as for Dorian Williams, I think he's gotten better. I think he's gotten better in coverage. I love him as a run stopper that can fly around sideline to sideline. I love his intensity, and I joked around the one day. I was like, he plays with his hair on fire, like just flies around and makes plays. Coverage is still a weak point. He benefits from having, what I'd consider an all-pro linebacker in Bernard next to him. So he kind of has been exposed. He was exposed in the Baltimore game when, they kind of picked on him with Likely as well as Andrew. So that's a concern. But I think they've shown progress that if you look at the postseason, because obviously with the trade deadline, everybody's like, do you think they add another position? I'd like to see them add possibly another linebacker, a veteran linebacker, to have Dorian or even the other guy, whoever they pick up or trade for, be that third linebacker. Because if Seattle goes heavy, the Bills have shown that they will adjust and they want to bring three linebackers on the field. I would love, and the hope is later in the year, Dorian Williams is that A.J. Klein third linebacker that you're bringing in to help stop the run. But when he's at the 2, or, technically he would be the best linebacker on the field if Bernard can't go, it is definitely concerning.
Hey, what do you make of Samuel? And Gene mentioned it. He didn't practice again today for the second straight day in a row.
Yeah.
And the trade deadline is coming up. Before the injury, I was like, the Bills maybe could get something for Samuel. I know he's got a big contract attached to him now with Buffalo, but there are teams that need wide receivers, and they seem to be the commodity that's being floated around more than any other position in the NFL. Do you think the Bills are done here now before the trade deadline here, less than 2 weeks away? Do you think there's some movement? Do you think that they could get something back in return if there was a deal to be made here? Well, what are your thoughts on the Bills here in their involvement with the trade deadline?
Yeah, as far as Samuel, Mike brought that point up when we were heading home after the game on Sunday. He's the highest paid wide receiver on the team right now, and has really kind of been a disappointment. Like, let's just call it what it is. I even had the hot take that I think the Bills' offense is better when Samuel's not on the field. Like there seems to be a sense, to some respects, of like when he's on the field, it's like, well, we got to get him the ball.
When he's on the field, he feels like window dressing to me, Dan. I feel like they use him as a decoy.
Yeah.
That more than anything, that's been his involvement in the offense.
Yeah, and I joked that was in his contract that he's not allowed to be 3 yards past the line of scrimmage down the field. Like, and I know that's where he runs his most routes. Like, I know people look at his speed and they're like, oh, he's going to stretch the field. That's never been what Curtis Samuel has done. He has been a yards after catch guy. And I don't know how much the foot is still bothering him from training camp. We never really got a full explanation of what it was, but if it's a turf toe, whether it's, a little bit of a plantar fasciitis, like things like that, like I feel like next year we're going to go in, or at the end of this year, and we're going to hear kind of like what we heard with Gabe Davis, kind of like what we heard with Spencer Brown, that there's going to be a lot of, hey, Curtis just wasn't healthy this year. Like, we really didn't say how much his foot was bothering, because it doesn't feel like he has that explosive burst. And even though he was taken off the injury report, never put on the IR, he missed time in the preseason, and then he would constantly seem to pop up during the weeks on the injury report with a foot, and he'd be limited. So, like, I think his foot's still bothering him. Now you're adding on this shoulder. I don't know if there's any team that wants to take on his contract based on his production, so I don't know what you're really going to get in return for that. But I don't know if they're ready to just cut their losses and eat more money and say, like, it just didn't work out. I think they want a bigger sample size. Personally, again, not a doctor, not in the building, as we like to say. I think he's just more hurt and his foot's bothering him more than we have seen, because seeing what he did in Washington the last few years, like, the guy has burst and we just haven't seen any of it. And then who could they add? I don't think they add another defensive end, because I think you are kind of banking on Vaughn coming back next week after this game. So I think it could be a linebacker, somebody to add a little bit more depth to that position. But I think they're pretty happy with the way the wide receivers are, even with Samuel out, because you have a lot of guys that we said before the season do a lot of the same things. And Amari Cooper is the anomaly that can be a true X wide receiver. Coleman can play inside a little more. And I think the offense is only going to get better as the season goes on, as Cooper gets more assimilated to the offense.
We're watching, and you brought up something about Samuel, like, we'll learn. I think that's true. Like, we'll get to the end of the year, and here's what we're really going on. With Josh Allen, are we going to get to the end of the year like, oh, yeah, by the way, this is what was really going on with that left hand injury? Because it's not like he's playing poorly, Dan, but there's a little bit of a difference of his game. Like the one play last week, hey, it's right there. Just run ahead and get the first down, and he throws it, and it goes incomplete. But your thoughts on Allen? Are we seeing a more conservative Josh Allen, and is that a good thing?
I don't know if it's a more conservative. I think the week one, maybe it just kind of spooked him a little bit, in the sense of the fact that he had to go Superman style and put the cape on in that second half against Arizona. Because I think I was on here and we were joking around, like, He was playing week one like it was the AFC Championship game. Like, screw it, I'll do whatever it takes. And I think the injury, and again, we saw him practice last week without the glove on. His fingers weren't taped the week before. I think his hand is getting better. I was surprised when he came out last Sunday with the glove back on. Whether that's now just a level of comfort, that's something he might want to do moving forward. We saw Tom Brady do that. Big Ben played with gloves, all of those things. Maybe now it's just a comfort level. Maybe he's superstitious. I don't know how much the hand's really bothering him. I just wonder if the coaching staff was, again, like, hey, dude, we got 17 plus more games of these. Like, we can't have you doing that all the time. And kind of, again, we all know he's so special. That's what makes him special, is because of his use of the legs. But I think he is also understanding it's October and we don't need to take more unnecessary hits outside the pocket.
Dan Fates joining us here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan. Dan, look around the rest of the division, the rest of the AFC East here, and Gino and I were having some fun earlier this week trying to figure out when exactly the Bills could have this division wrapped up. If you looked ahead to the schedule, do you have a preference as to when this could all go? I mean, you look at the Jets' schedule; it's not that daunting, but they are the Jets.
Yeah.
You look at what's happening with New England; they're a lost cause. Miami, maybe they get better with Tua, maybe they're a dysfunctional organization as well. Short of a Josh Allen injury, this feels like a Bills team that's going to win their fifth straight division title. It's just a matter of when.
Wow, are you knocking on wood? Like, this is wild. It's October 24th.
We're popping off.
Yeah, I mean, this is good sports talk radio. It's
We're
a matter
popping
of
off.
when do the Bills clinch, not do they clinch. I love this. I don't think those last few games of the season will matter all that much. There's 2 trips to New England at the end of the year, and I think is that the other Jets game sprinkled in there? Is it Patriots, Jets, Patriots to end the year?
It goes
Patriots, Jets, Patriots.
Yeah.
You finish up in Foxborough.
Yeah, I don't think we will be seeing Josh Allen that final week of the season. So wherever they get that, I mean, you could be playing for seeding as it comes to the division. Yeah, I think the Jets are a classic case of dysfunction. I like Mike McDaniels. Like I do. I think that we've shown that while Tua may not be a great quarterback, he's a great quarterback in that system. Where we will see that, I guess we'll kind of get more of a sense of that this week if Tua plays. But yeah, again, 2.5 game lead right now, or 3.5 game lead right now in the division. That's why last week or the week before against the Jets was just so crucial. I'm with you. I will say it. I'll say this. I haven't thought about when the Bills will clinch. I have thought that they are in a great spot and that there's a lot of the season left to go. How about that for an answer?
Oh, okay. We got even more brazen, Dan. Okay, because we're even taking it a step further. All right. Not only have they clinched, but are they better off as the 3 or the 4? As the 4, you would get the top wildcard team. But I'm telling you that Kansas City, you look at their schedule, I think they're the 1. I would rather be the 4 and go to Arrowhead than be the 3 and go to Baltimore, Dan. Tell me I'm crazy here and tell me that's dumb. You're way out ahead of yourself there, Gene.
This is why you guys are so good at your jobs. Like the fact that you guys go on every single day, this is great sports talk radio. I think they'll end up being the 3. Now, is that the best case scenario? Maybe they can catch ball. Like, I don't know. You guys don't preface me with these questions before.
A couple of 2-loss teams right now. I mean, look, they're going to lose games down the stretch. It's unfair to think that the Bills aren't going to lose. I just think that they've set themselves up with that win against the Jets and with the way their schedule is here the next few weeks, where you could really realistically say, by the time you get to that tough stretch there, that Kansas City, San Francisco, Detroit 3-game and 4-game stretch there in December, that the Bills might have the division close to, if not sewn up already.
Yeah. Doesn't it always feel, too, like Baltimore's due for, 9 injuries on their defense or offense, and that they'll be, clinging to a playoff spot at some point, let alone fighting for a home playoff game?
The advantage that the Bills have over Baltimore is that the Bills play in the East, and Baltimore has a tough division, and Cincinnati is getting better, and the Browns are going to be better with Jameis, and Pittsburgh's not going to roll over. Baltimore is great right now, and they're the toast of the league, but they're in a really, really tough division.
Yeah, and that division, like you said, will cannibalize itself. You're right. Like the division, the AFC East is not that bare like the AFC North is. So I hear I still like Houston. I think they're a different offense with Nico Collins, as the Bills saw from the first half to the second half. So where would I rather go? It would be great to go to Arrowhead and exercise some demons. Baltimore, again, I said it before. I still don't think, for all that Lamar is and for how good he really did play against the Bills, he was throwing to wide open receivers. He was throwing to wide open receivers and ended up with 180 yards. There's something about this Baltimore team that doesn't scare me in the sense of their weapons and things like that, and they've always just kind of held Lamar decently in check when they've had their players on the field. Let's be honest. They played them without I don't think Rapp played that game. Or Rapp got injured in that game. You also were without Taron Johnson. You were also without Terrell Bernard. I would like to get Baltimore another game when you had a pretty healthy defense. So that's something that goes into it when you start mapping it out. I just think Baltimore in a home game at night is never a good spot to be an opponent. The Bills they've won in Kansas City. They haven't won in the playoffs in Kansas City. They haven't beat Kansas City in any playoff game. Doesn't matter where it's played. So looking at that ahead is an interesting choice of pick your poison.
Dan Vates, 13 Wham Buffalo Plus. Tell us what's coming up, and is it your Jenna that's making the trek out to Seattle, Dan?
is Jenna. They're getting their frequent flyer miles in this one. And you know what, guys? I thought I started out with a really good, insight and things like that, and I was just caught totally off guard by your great, insightful questions about map the next 2 months of the season and how it's all going to shake out. We want to fast forward ahead to mid-December, Dan, and where everything
We're already there.
So I apologize for that. As for, I always love coming on here on Thursday because we're doing our podcast today, our live show at 7:15 on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. So we will have that. If you miss it, we want to hear you. You can comment in. We answer some questions, talk about the slow starts, Josh Allen with no interceptions, things like that. And then that will come out wherever you get your podcast tomorrow morning, as well as on the YouTube channel. Mike also talked to Nico Tamarian, who used to be a sports director in Syracuse. He's now in Seattle, so we got an insight on this Seahawks team. So it's something, again, we like to do every week is catch up with somebody in the city that they cover the team that the Bills are playing. So good insight there.
Dan, appreciate the time as always, bud. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Dan Fates, 13 Web Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. Now I'm feeling self-conscious. Are we premature and popping off the way that we're talking here about the Bills and talking about how they should be seated at the end of the season when they win the division?
That was Fatesian. Like, what was he communicating to us there? Like,
slow down?
Slow down?
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of look at the schedule, and I look at the division that they play in, and I have a hard time.
Okay, it fits the theme of the show today where we were talking about the load management issue. Get ready for it, Danger. Like, the way this is lined up, if there is nothing to be gained, you will see Mitchell Trubisky and who knows who at running back, and, a lot at Foxborough, and maybe that'll be the Patriots looking for win number 2 in the season.
Right. I wonder if the AFC just breaks out this year where there's just more – the haves – distinguish themselves so much more than the have-nots, that there isn't as much gray area. I think if there is gray area, it probably does exist in the AFC North, where I feel like with Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati kind of getting better, that those 3 and 4 teams, really, with Cleveland in the mix as well. Cleveland's not going to roll.
I put it this way. Like, we talked to PJ Glasser yesterday, Baltimore playing at Cleveland. Oh, come on. It's Baltimore. Cleveland has 1 win. Oh, no. You're not laying 9 points there in the Ravens.
No.
Cleveland. I'm not saying the Browns are going to win outright, but that's going to be a game.
And, we're saying this on a week where the Bills could go to Seattle and very easily lose this game.
They could not only lose, Danger, it could be Baltimore-esque. If the linebackers are not good to go, if we see those things cropping up, and you have Leslie Frazier on the other side and Dotson, and I'm going to make my pick tomorrow, but I'll put it this way: like, if the Bills lose, they lost close to Houston, but it does have that feel that this could be just kind of a correction game, if you will.
Yeah, well, I think for all the praise that we heap on the secondary of the Buffalo Bills and the corners and Christian Benford and
Rasul
Douglas. Thank you, Gene. For all the praise that we say, we don't talk about them because I forget that we don't talk about them, and I forget who's even out there. Benford and Douglas have been so good this year. This will be a test against a team that passes the ball, and Geno Smith, who has more passing yards coming into this game than any other quarterback in the league. So you expect them to step up, then maybe you have to focus on stopping that run game, that Kenneth Walker-led run game of the Seattle Seahawks. We'll talk more Seahawks next hour when we're joined by Corbin Smith of the Locked On Seahawks podcast. Next in the sports bar. What do you got, Gino?
I've got takes here. We had a great conversation yesterday with Jim Riley, and this thing he shared with us about that team that is playing in Sacramento, but we're not going to call them Sacramento. We're not going to call them Vegas. We're not going to call them anything.
Right.
Okay, what is this really about? I got another take on that, too, real quick. Like, if you are a city that is, like, done with your team, you're embarrassed by your team, you should just not allow them to use your name anymore, right?
So, like, during the drought era, like, they're not the Buffalo Sabres anymore. They're just
the
Sabres.
Yeah, Sabres hockey team. Yeah. Also, this story out of Boston, could Mr. Mayo be a one and done? Wait a second. This is the organization that preaches process and patience and everything else.
That would be bad for the show. I don't like that. I have a non-sports take as well for those of us who get inundated with meetings during your workday, virtual meetings or otherwise, I feel like I may have stumbled across a potential hack to your business day.
I think this is brilliant, by the way. I know what you're going to talk about.
Can't wait to get to that. Corbin Smith, Locked on Seahawks, also joining us next hour. You're in the Sports Bar on the Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with 7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Linebacker Terrell Bernard and wide receiver Curtis Samuel, the only two Buffalo Bills not to practice today. Everyone else with either full or limited. A.J. Epinesa on Geno Smith.
He's leading the league in passing yards or something like that. So he's obviously very talented. He's been in the league a long time. And he's just one of those quarterbacks that if you don't take care of him early or put hits on him early, he's going to be able to survey the field and just kind of pick what he wants. So we got to get after him quick.
Well, let's learn about the opponent. Corbin Smith, the Locked On Seahawks podcast, will join us later this hour here in the Sports Bar. Week 8 of the NFL season beginning tonight. It's the Rams and the Vikings. Syracuse football in action tonight. The Orange playing at Pittsburgh. The Amherst, they beat up Cleveland last night, 6-1. Same two teams in Ohio coming up on Saturday. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Guys, we got the Bills going up against Geno this week. It's going to be a good one. I think Buffalo wins the game, but you look at the Bills this year, and I'm sure you guys, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat, right? Their wins are all against teams that have a losing record.
Good football team, well coached as well.
Mike Danger.
It'll be fun. I think this is a sneaky tough game for the Bills. I mean, you could think the way the Bills have steamrolled a bad Titans team that they should have this momentum, and maybe McDermott's defense is too much for Geno Smith to unpack, but there are some significant injuries.
Gene Battaglia.
It's a game where, all right, if the Bills are healthy and the Bills do what they're supposed to do, they should win this game. I think we all can kind of agree, but I'm concerned about the linebackers, and that will continue to be my concern. Number 2 is, does Leslie Frazier know where the bodies are buried when it comes to how to defend Josh Allen?
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We'll learn more about the Seattle Seahawks, Buffalo Bills opponent on Sunday when we talk to Corbin Smith of the Locked On Seahawks podcast. He's joining us here in less than 20 minutes. We welcome you back in to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Pull up a stool, get comfortable. Join us anytime at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN. We're also on Elon's Twitter, at The Fan Rochester, our stream up on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, on Twitch as well, and of course in the free to download Odyssey app.
I got a football take, baseball take. Where do you want to start here?
Let's do baseball.
Baseball, because that's the fabric of our country.
Oh, you're going to get me started? You're going to get me started?
Danger, let's...
It reminds us of all that was once good and could be again. The one constant through all the years
now, can you do that?
Has been baseball.
Please do it in the Saul voice.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it with a straight face.
Oh, the one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. It's been fantastic, except when I fall down the stairs and I fall and my shoes fell off. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. They ran over my glasses. I broke them and I can't see, damn it. It's been erased like a blackboard. It's been rebuilt like my knee that I tore my knee when I fell down the stairs and then erased again. Baseball has marked the time. It reminds us of all that was once good, even though Ray's bad. I don't like Ray. Ray threw me down the stairs. He was very mean to me. He said harsh, mean things, and Ray's dad was even worse.
It wasn't Ray or Ray's dad. It was the brother-in-law.
Yeah, I don't like him either. I called him a redhead, and I called him a soulless ginger, and he threw me down the stairs, and I can't see, and I fell on my ass pipe.
There you go.
Oh gosh, that's talking with Jim Riley, the Barreled Up podcast yesterday. If you missed that, he's
suing him, Jim Riley. I'm suing everybody.
No, we really like Jim Riley, and we like when he comes on with us. I just asked him a question like, "Hey, what are we calling the A's next year? Are they the Sacramento A's? We can't call them Oakland. Do we call them Las Vegas? Do we jump the gun there? Do we call them California?" The answer is actually none of the above. They're simply going to be the Athletics. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Yankees tonight against the no-name Athletic. Here's my read on it. The deal in Nevada is not done yet. If you needed a reminder, we can't even call this team Las Vegas because the financing, while the imagery, the renderings look really nice, Yeah, you got to come up with that plan finally. What if it doesn't get done, Danger? Well, this is the bargaining chip, right? Can't call them Sacramento because, well, aren't they the fallback team? Your name here, Athletics. Why not just sell the naming rights to the A's, right? The FanDuel Athletics, maybe it could.
I was gonna say that's where I would go with it, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be groundbreaking. It would be horrific, but you could certainly say. I mean, Red Bull has
right.
teams in MLS and Bundesliga. It could certainly be done, and maybe that's what this crooked owner is hoping will happen. That somebody will say, "Yeah, we'll give you billions of dollars to name your franchise after our brand." I hate it. This is such a bad look for baseball.
Bush. Actually, like, am I jealous of Sacramento? Part of me is like, wow, that would be really cool to have Major League Baseball and run. No, that is going to be the punchline. That is going to be the joke because the AAA team is going to be playing there. What's that field going to look like? It's going to be.
I can't imagine doing anything other than being in a pool when the temperatures reach 100 degrees. And I know that they're accustomed to it and they deal with it and they live in that area. But when you live in that area, you try not to be outside unless you're in a pool or unless you're in water, right? You're trying to stay in air-conditioned comfort if you're living in Florida in July, if you're in Sacramento, essentially desert heat. No, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really – I don't think they realize how bad it's going to be.
Rob Manfred's world. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
tell us what's going on here with the AFC East second best head coach.
Well, this is funny here. Like, for as bad as the Jets have been, and we point at them and we laugh, they're 7-point favorites this week on the road. That looks just like, hey, let's kind of – you're taking the Patriots this week. No. No, this is going to make Aaron Rodgers look like he's 30 again, and Devontae Adams will be like the Jets will look competent this week. What has happened in New England? And week one, oh my gosh, they got us in Survivor. They got a lot of people in Survivor.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this team is for real. And then this is the thing about Seattle, too. I'm like, yeah, they took the Seahawks to overtime. Maybe the Seahawks aren't that. No. What has happened since then? It has been a mess in New England. We're not even paying attention to that. Now Greg Bedard is Boston Sports Journal, so Greg Bedard is a reliable reporter, right? This is a bombshell. He is saying that Gerard Mayo, not Jared Mayo,
Mr. Mayo.
Gerard Mayo is not assured of a second season, especially if the organization is seen as a complete dumpster fire by early January. Like, Mayo was Belichick's hand-picked successor, and I think this actually checks out. If you want to rid yourself from the previous regime, if the Patriots go 1-16, don't laugh. Do they run their table in reverse here? It's possible. If Drake May doesn't show progress here, well, the Patriots are in a great position to hand-pick the best quarterback in the draft, and you know what? Actually hand-pick their next coach, too, because I don't think it's a bad spot there. I think Mr. Mayo is actually in trouble.
I agree with it, and I'll use a radio analogy to explain why this makes a lot of sense. If you're the New England Patriots, in the world of radio, the king of all media, Howard Stern, was on terrestrial radio famously for years and years and years. Of course, it's where he got his start. It's where he rose to notoriety. And when he left terrestrial radio, everybody scrambled to try and find who that next Howard Stern could be. And it's a hard thing to replace somebody who is as beloved as Stern was. See where I'm going with this analogy here. You bring in David Lee Roth. Hey, everybody loves David Lee Roth. Everybody loves Van Halen. Even a guy that was liked like David Lee Roth was still kind of viewed as like, this guy is not, he ain't it. I mean, we could like him, but this is not what we want. This is not what we are accustomed to, and we believe we deserve better than this. We're the fans of the New England Patriots who are completely spoiled by the years and years you got from Bill Belichick and the championships and everything that came with a guy that many consider to be the best coach of all time. You almost need a sacrifice in order to forget and move on to the guy that could actually be the replacement for the legend that you're replacing.
I think there's a sports analogy to this. where the legendary coach steps aside and then the guy comes in. Oh, no, good luck. You are Mr. Transition. Do you remember the guy who coached the Bulls after Phil Jackson left, after The Last Dance? Tim Floyd.
Yeah.
Yep, Tim Floyd.
Iowa State.
Tim Floyd comes in, and everybody is rolling their eyes. And he lasted 3 years in Chicago. And, he's been out of basketball for a few years now. But you don't want to follow that legend.
It's happening right now in Alabama. I bet you Kalen DeBoer wishes he was back in Washington because, you lose one game with Alabama and immediately you're not the guy, and you're going to be compared to the guy that they consider to be the best ever. So it's a tough spot. And, I mean, honestly, I didn't realize – it makes sense why Belichick would say, like, okay, that's the guy I'm going to handpick to succeed me when I'm not here, but you almost are setting him up to fail. Like, there's no chance that Mr. Mayo is going to have a good season following up the legacy of Bill Belichick, especially when Bill Belichick kind of left him with nothing. I mean, we forget how bad the Patriots were in Bill Belichick's last year, so bad that they moved on from him. It probably wasn't kind of is his fault. He was the GM and the head coach. But it makes a lot of sense.
But if you're going to move on from him, but you're still going to keep his culture, it never made any sense to me. Like, you had an opportunity to start anew there, and you wasted a year.
Right.
Look at it.
Well, the thing is like if you're Mr. Mayo, you're trying to continue to instill that culture, but you don't have the clout to instill that culture. You're there by association, but you don't have the rings. You don't have the cachet. And, I'm sure that there's a coach out there that you could get next season if you're the Patriots that maybe can provide that. Or if you want to be trendy, hire the hot, young hot shot offensive coordinator that can work with Drake May and turn that offense into something capable, because it hasn't been so far this season with Mr. Mayo guiding things.
Yeah, if you are new to the show or maybe you don't know the story, because we don't want to be so inside jokey here, okay? But Danger will not let me forget. The story here in 15 seconds, Gerard Mayo's a rookie. I am in the Patriot locker room. I'm asking him to come on the show as a guest for this national show. I didn't call him Gerard Mayo. I called him Jared. And he corrected me right away. It's Gerard, and I felt horrible. I should have known that. I feel terrible. But he's gracious enough to do the interview.
Yeah.
And at the end, while I'm waiting there, now my mind's playing tricks on me. Did I call him Jared? I knew it was Gerard. Is it Jared? Is it Gerard? Is it Jared? It's Gerard. What do I do?
Mr. Mayo.
I thanked 22-year-old Mr. Mayo.
Rookie. Hey, Mr. Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo.
Yeah, that's good. Well, henceforth, he will be known as Mr. Mayo in the sports bar. And maybe it won't be for much longer if he's not the head coach of the New England Patriots. We'll see. But that actually makes a lot of sense, and I understand that. And if you're the Patriots, how do you make people forget Bill Belichick? You remove, let's get a couple of bodies in there, and distance will make the heart grow fonder, and you get somebody in there to make you forget what Bill Belichick left Gerard Mayo with, because I don't think he's in any position to win long term.
No.
Drake May maybe is something, but Mr. Mayo isn't the person who's going to unlock what Drake May could be in the NFL. We have a coworker. This is my non-sports take. We have a coworker, and earlier this week I tried to set up a quick meeting with him. And you know how when you go to set up a meeting, it'll compare your calendars side by side, and you look for open space on both your calendars. And so I'm doing that. I was absolutely overwhelmed, floored by the amount of time he already had booked into each day. Now, a lot of us already have too many meetings booked out, but just to see how much time was eaten up in this guy's calendar, it got me thinking, can you avoid being added to another meeting if you just load up your calendar? Now, I've got it pretty good. Gino, you and I have got it pretty good. We've got this little 3-hour block every afternoon here called the Sports Bar, where we're not taking meetings from 3 until 5 if you're talking about a 9 to 5 business day.
Stop. You don't put it as 2? Like they're paying it to me. I'm blocking it out at 2. Don't call me after 2.
You're right. I should. I do.
So adjust that.
3 to 6 is non-negotiable. But yes, 2 o'clock should be reserved for preparation. So we have that built into our calendars. But what if I start adding sporadic times throughout the day and label it, instead of busy, like you'll see it as, oh, he's busy. What if I label it as I'm in the lab? Is anybody going to really bother you if your schedule says you're in the lab? Because it feels pretty strong.
How you can see, because I just see busy.
I see busy. Maybe that's all it is.
Yeah,
but
busy. Like that's what people will look at. Busy me, and look, I kind of do it too. And maybe it's like, you need to carve aside time for prospecting and find new business. Okay, great, no problem. I'll put it in every Tuesday. I put in well, nobody bugs me then. I'm like, ooh, this is a benefit.
Yeah, it is kind of nice, right? I'm just gonna. I don't know if there's a setting where you can have them see what your meetings are. I don't know if they allow that or not. But if anybody asks, I'm just going to say I'm in the lab. I'm busy. I'm in the lab. Nobody's going to mess with you if you're in the lab.
Or you just, in the meeting description, write busy.
Yeah. It's just
busy.
Just busy for a good 4 hours of my 8-hour workday.
Now,
outside of the 3 hours we do here.
You, on the other hand, you get more invited to more waste of time Zoom meetings and programming, blah,
I just
blah,
don't
blah,
want to
blah,
be
blah.
I don't want to be parts of meetings that could be emails. And I don't want to be the guy that initiates meetings that could be emails either. And I've had it with Zoom, right? Like, I'm not saying anything new. I think most of us have fatigue. It's just become part of our life now. And it's like, I still would much rather have the face-to-face conversation. And certainly, I guess it's better than the phone call. But the meeting that could be the email is the worst. And I think I'm just going to start filling up my calendar with chunks of time labeled in the lab. And, if you want to audit me, go ahead and audit me. But don't mess with me because I'm in the lab. We got to get to Corbin Smith from the Locked On Seahawks podcast. Let's learn more about the Buffalo Bills opponent on Sunday. Next on The Fan.
You're listening Rochester Sports Update.
Terrell Bernard, Curtis Samuel, the only two Bills not to practice today. Everyone else was either full or limited. Quarterback Josh Allen breaking down the Seahawks defensive personnel.
A couple really good corners. Obviously familiar face in T-Dot. He's playing really good football. I think their D-line is playing very, very solid defense as well. Tough team to run against. They've been a high-effort group. They've been making some plays, so we're going to have our hands full.
Corbin Smith, the Locked On Seahawks podcast, to join us next here in the Sports Bar. The Vikings at 5-1 tonight, taking on the 2-4 Rams. Week 8 of the NFL season begins. Syracuse football also in action tonight. The Orange are at Pittsburgh. The Amherst, they thumped Cleveland last night, 6-1. Same two teams in Ohio coming up on Saturday. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Just playing at my own pace. That's pretty much it. Just playing at my own pace. I don't get sped up. Get where I need to be when I want to be there, and just the ball find you, make the plays. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've done since high school, college. Give me the ball, I'll make some guys miss, get down the field, and continue to move the chains. And, definitely on occasions, if I don't trip, I'm going to crib something, but, it is what it is.
Bills wide receiver Keon Coleman, one of the beneficiaries of the new wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, Amari Cooper, in the fray. We look ahead to Sunday afternoon. In the late window, the Bills traveling to the Pacific Northwest to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Let's learn more about the Bills' opponent this weekend with our buddy Corbin Smith covering the team for the Locked On Seahawks podcast, Corbin. And we've had a couple of chances to see Seattle on the national stage, and what we gather is what we keep hearing is they like to pass the ball. Geno Smith leads the league in passing yards. The defense is young, but they're good. They've got some really good corners. Tell us a little bit about how this season has gone so far for the Seahawks. It looks a little Jekyll and Hyde when you see some questionable losses on that schedule.
Yeah, it really has been a roller coaster, and sometimes you really expect that when you got a new head coach. You've got new schemes. There's been some injuries sprinkled in. You've got a first-time offensive coordinator in the NFL, and Ryan Grubb, who I think has had to go through some adjustment periods here, trying to figure out that, wait, I can't do exactly what I did at Washington, and I'm going to have to make some adjustments in the NFL game. But when they've been good, they've looked really good. This last Sunday, I think the Atlanta Falcons are an excellent football team, and the Seahawks wiped the floor with them for most of that game. They got off to a fast start. They got 3 turnovers late in the game, ended up winning by 20, and at times it felt like it was more lopsided than that. It was a really dominant road effort. The defense was aggressive. The offense was able to get some balance with Ken Walker III. The passing game was rolling. Geno Smith had to only throw 28 times in that game, but was really efficient with his opportunities. And special teams looked the best it's looked all year. That was coming off a 3-game losing streak where, again, they had some really questionable losses. You mentioned the Giants game being the most notable, that Daniel Jones throwing all over them. It's just been a year of learning curves for this team, and it still feels like we don't necessarily know if this team is going to be a contender by the end of the season, or if this is one of those teams that's just going to endure this the entire season. They're going to be up and down and maybe doesn't even make the playoffs. It is still, the jury is out whether or not this team is going to be a contender or not. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Corbin, tell us a little bit more about Geno Smith, because I want to give him credit. Well, a lot of us have that image of Geno with the Jets, and it didn't go very well. But, he came in the same draft class as E.J. Manuel. E.J. Manuel's been out of the league for years, but here's Geno Smith finally getting his chance. What finally clicked for him?
I think the two things that really changed, one, he had a coaching staff that inspired confidence in him. I don't think that he felt that when he was in New York. But when Pete Carroll and his staff were here, they inspired confidence in him, and he was able to play. The physical tools have always been there. He could have been a first-round pick with some of the numbers he put up at West Virginia, but there were some question marks in terms of his maturity and where he was at as a player coming into the league, and the Jets did not do what they needed to do to help him develop. The Seahawks were able to give him that confidence when he was a backup and he got thrust into a few games as starter, replacing Russell Wilson back in the 2021 season. And then on the field, he is just night and day better in terms of his pocket presence. When you watch his Jets film, that was one of the biggest weaknesses. It didn't seem like he had the awareness of the rush coming after him. Now that is a strength in his game. You watch the Falcons game on Sunday, I can't tell you how many times it just looked like the guy's got eyeballs circling around his head. Like he knows where pressure's coming at. He is masterful at maneuvering the pocket. He's been behind a pretty rough offensive line most of this year, and yet he has not been sacked that often, in large part because of his ability to move the pocket, and he's been able to extend plays. He's added the running element to his game. It just seems like he's really putting everything together, and this offense is catered well to him as long as Ryan Grubb doesn't decide to do what he did against the Giants and have him throw 88% of the time. That's a little bit too much.
Well, I'll talk about that offense a little bit more with Corbin Smith and also Seahawks injuries. Corbin Smith, Locked On Seahawks, joining us in the sports bar, Danger and Battaglia on the Fan. You mentioned the coaching staff, a new head coach at McDonald, first-time offensive coordinator. The name that Bills fans are going to be familiar with, of course, is Leslie Frazier. I'm curious, what's his involvement been? What does he bring to Seattle's defense? Because that's certainly somebody that, looking at this matchup specifically, may know a thing or two about how to exploit Josh Allen's weaknesses.
Yeah, he's really in the advisor role right now, with Mike McDonald being a first-time head coach and previously working with him in Baltimore. That is who he turns to when he runs into situations in a game where maybe like, I'm not necessarily sure what to do at this point, or I need some advice to lean on you. He has definitely been involved from the game planning perspective, but really kind of a senior advisor for this football team. And I fully anticipate this week, with his prior knowledge of, Josh Allen, a lot of the people on the Bills offense being on that staff, that this week, maybe more so than others, that they are going to be leaning more heavily on him in the game planning aspect. But I think that he's been there to help with the administrative stuff for a first-time coach, and he's also been involved in the game planning, working with Mike McDonald as well as the defensive coordinator, Adam Durde.
If I had to list concerns from the Buffalo standpoint here, and I don't know if you got a chance to watch that Sunday night game, Corbin, where the Bills went into Baltimore and Derrick Henry, ran 90 yards in the first place, set the tone there, and Derrick Henry does that to a lot of teams, but I feel like Kenneth Walker is the running back that kind of, America doesn't know enough about here. Now, I'm reading that he's under the weather. I would assume he's going to be good, but your thoughts on Seattle's running game in particular, if Terrell Bernard is not able to go for the Bills this week?
That is the big injury for Buffalo here. There's no question about it, because Seattle finally was able to get some balance this last weekend. It's been a two-sided problem. There have been a few games where Ryan Grubb has just gotten way too pass happy, and he's given up on the run too early. There have also been a few games like the San Francisco game where they just simply could not run the football against the 49ers. Last week, the Falcons had one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. That's the caveat, but they were able to get Ken Walker going. He could have had 2 touchdowns, and one of them was called back from a hold. He did add a receiving touchdown. I'm anticipating that he's going to be feeling pretty good by the weekend, considering that he was sick during that game. I anticipate he'll be ready to go by the weekend and be feeling better. But the run game has just been really inconsistent, and part of that's been the right tackle situation. They're down to their 4th-string right tackle right now. Mike Jarrell played pretty well on Sunday, the 6th-round pick out of Findlay University, but, they've had a lot of upheaval at that position. The right guard spot, Christian Haynes and Anthony Bradford, neither one of them has been able to fully seize that job, and they're still rotating them. So they've just had some issues with their right side of the line, and being able to have some consistency with that group, leading to the run game being more effective. But last week was certainly a positive stepping stone, and if Buffalo's going to play 5- and 6-man boxes, I think even Ryan Grubb is going to be willing to run the football, and he has to be in this game to get Ken Walker III going. They cannot be one-dimensional with their passing game and expect to beat the Buffalo Bills.
Talk to us a little bit about the health, specifically with one of the star players on Seattle, DK Metcalf. Are we expecting him to practice at any point this week? I saw reports that he wasn't expected to go today, and I don't know what the latest is on his health leading up into Sunday. Corbin, what have you heard?
So Mike McDonald yesterday said that he was probably not going to be practicing today. I fully anticipate he's not going to be out there. Tomorrow is going to be the key day on that front. And knowing DK Metcalf, he did miss one game last year, but there have been several other times where he's had injuries. that you thought, oh, he's probably going to miss a game or two, and he found a way to play. He's kind of like Wolverine. He heals really quickly. He's just a freak athlete that has really quick healing. And if I had to bet right now, and I'm not really a betting man, but if I had to bet, I would say that he's going to try to give this a run on Friday and see if he can play on Sunday, because that's just the way this guy is wired.
Basic question that you probably answered 1,000 times, but for our audience, I mean, this is the first time in 8 years Buffalo has gone out there. Rex Ryan was the coach last time. That was that crazy Monday night game that Seattle won. But also, I think a concern for any team coming in that's not used to it, what kind of effect do the 12s have? Like, how loud is it in Seattle? Can the Seahawk fans lay claim to being the loudest stadium in the NFL, or would you say it's Arrowhead or somewhere else?
Seahawks fans would probably not be happy about me saying this, but I would say that Kansas City's probably got the loudest at this stage. But Seattle is still a very loud environment. It's definitely number 2. And it hasn't led to the success in the win-loss column the last few years. In fact, the Seahawks have lost their last 2 games. They're on a 2-game losing streak at Lumen Field. So it's not the impossible place to win at that it was during the Legion of Boom era, but the fans are still really loud. There's been a ton of false starts this year. So they're still effectively impacting what offenses are doing. And this will be Josh Allen's first time playing there, so he's going to have that silent count going effectively to be able to manage that crowd noise, because I anticipate that this weekend, especially with the weather, it's supposed to be rainy the entire game. You add the weather with the volume. That is not normally an appealing mix for visiting quarterbacks. And so it's going to be a test. There's no question about that for Josh Allen.
You mentioned the Legion of Boom, man, and I just conjures up memories. There are always players throughout the league, like you see them play. They're not on your favorite team, but when you watch them play, you're like, ugh, I want that guy on my team. And it was always Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor or Richard Sherman. You've got one now in his second year in Devin Witherspoon, and I'm just curious as to how he's acclimated as a pro, because, boy, coming out of Illinois, I'm like, that's a player I would want on my team.
Yeah, statistically, it has not been as good of a season for him as his rookie year was. I think he's been put in a lot of bad situations, but he has still been really good at defending the run. He had a game 2 weeks ago against the 49ers. He gave him 1 catch for 3 yards in coverage. I feel like, I don't know if it's going to be this weekend, but I feel like there is a blow-up game coming here soon for him, because this is a guy that is dangerous blitzing from the slot. He's got good ball skills. He's a hard hitter that can create fumbles. At some point, there's going to be some big plays that are going to happen. It's just been kind of a quiet season for him on that front. But adding a middle linebacker in Ernest Jones is going to help the middle of the defense. And some of the other additions they've had coming off of injuries, bringing in Roy Robertson Harris, they've got a lot of the pieces now around him that, Reek Woolen's supposed to be back this week. Hopefully with all of those players getting back into the lineup, it's going to make it tougher for the quarterback and Josh Allen to say, you know what, I'm not going to throw very much at Devin Witherspoon because, now I've got to deal with Reek Woolen on the other side. The last few games, teams just haven't been taking very many opportunities to throw at Devin Witherspoon because he's a really good cover corner.
Do you think the best course of action, if you're just looking at this from Buffalo's standpoint, is actually to run the ball? James Cook, and we've seen Ray Davis here. Like, how has Seattle been against the run this year, Corbin?
They've been terrible. They have been god-awful. In fact, the 3-game losing streak, they gave up over 172 rushing yards per game. Now, the caveat here, they were missing some really good players on their defensive line. Byron Murphy, their first-round pick, was out for 3 games with a hamstring injury. He came back Sunday, and they're 4-0 when he plays. He has been a huge difference maker for them. They had a game in Detroit that Leonard Williams didn't play because of an injury. And then, as I mentioned a little bit ago, they just traded for Ernest Jones, who they got from the Titans, formerly the Rams. He is one of the best run-defending linebackers in the NFL. That should be instantly a major game changer for this defense, that they've had issues at the linebacker position all year with the second-level run fits. I think moving Tyrell Dodson, who you guys are familiar with, moving him to the will spot is going to be better for him, and then they're going to be able to plug in Ernest Jones at that middle linebacker spot. They're hoping that that's going to be able to really turn things around, and they did shut Atlanta's run game down in the second half last week too. 11 carries for 22 yards for Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. They're hoping that they're going to start getting things rolling there, but that has been their biggest weakness on defense.
Corbin, it's funny. We started our conversation kind of asking about what the Seahawks are and looking at their schedule and looking at their wins and their kind of questionable loss. They're still a first-place team in the NFC West. I mean, we're nitpicking a first-place team, and that imagine what they would be if we didn't have all of these little issues that we're discussing about Seattle. Talk about the rest of the division that they play in right now, because it feels as if it's been an underperforming division, a division that hasn't lived up to expectations so far.
It's been a division that has been ravaged by injuries. I mean, look at the 49ers. They just lost Brandon Ayuk. They were already without Javon Hargrave. Christian McCaffrey hasn't played the entire season. Hufanga, their safety's been out. I mean, they've had injuries all over the place. The Rams are just now going to be getting Puka Nacua back and Cooper Kupp back, and who knows how long Kupp's going to be in Los Angeles. If they lose tonight against the Vikings, he might be traded in the next few days. But they've had injuries on the offensive line and on defense. And then the Cardinals, they've had some injuries, and they had a few games slip away. So, no, it has been a disappointing season. I thought this was going to be one of the best divisions in football. And to this point, this is a division that literally has one win against NFC foes that are not in division. And the Seahawks have that, the Falcons last week. They're 1-9 against non-NFC West teams in the conference.
Nope.
Oh, we lost.
Sounds like we lost Corbin mid-thought there. We'll see if we can get him back on the blower, at least to thank him for joining us here in the Sports Bar, giving us some great information.
I do want to ask him about the owners.
Okay, yeah, we got to find out a little bit more as we get Corbin Smith, the Locked On Seahawks podcast, back on the blower with us. They're not sure what happened. We just lost our connection, but certainly an interesting and intriguing matchup here between the Bills and the Seahawks when you consider that we don't know a ton about a team from the Pacific Northwest. We don't get to see a ton of on national TV, yet here they are, a first-place team in their division there in the NFC West. So sorry, Corbin, we somehow got disconnected there, and you were in the middle of telling us about the rest of the division and how the Seahawks, find themselves in first place in an injury-ravaged NFC West.
Yeah, the injuries have really been the biggest problem, and you look at this conference, the Seahawks are the only team that has a win against a non-NFC West team in conference. The division is 1-9 in those games. So the injuries have been a problem. They haven't been able to win games against the rest of the NFC. It's really been disappointing. I thought this was going to be one of the best divisions in football, and you can make an argument that it's one of the worst right now. Now, could this division turn things around? Absolutely. But certainly that makes this a prime opportunity for the Seahawks, and I think that's one of the reasons John Schneider's been aggressive already with the trade deadline. Like, hey, this is our opportunity. Let's go bolster our roster. Let's fill some of these deficiencies, and let's get that first division title since 2020.
Corbin, last one for me, and last time we had you on, that was the summer of the Russell Wilson trade. We discovered this. Wait a second. The Seahawks are going to have to be put up for sale or something with the state of Washington and a trust, and even though Jody Allen, the sister of the late Paul Allen, is certainly involved, at least from where we sit. Where do things stand right now in terms of the sale of the team?
Right now, it looks like this is something that's going to be held off for a while. There's no rush to make this happen. And Paul Allen, in his trust in the will, it said that the team needs to be sold. But I don't know that Jody Allen wants to do that. I mean, she seems to be very in control of the franchise, and she's had her imprint on changing coaches, allowing Russell Wilson to be traded. She's got a voice in all of these things. So at this point, I think it's eventually going to happen, but I don't think that this is something that's going to be rushed to. And right now it doesn't look like it's imminent at the moment that they're going to be selling this football team.
What are your thoughts when you see Russell Wilson playing in Pittsburgh?
Well, he looked a hell of a lot better than Denver. I will say that much. I mean, I don't know what went wrong there with the Broncos, but the fit just never was right there for Russell Wilson. I thought he looked like vintage Russell the last three quarters of that game against the Jets the other night. So, you know what? They've got a good running game with Najee Harris. They're a well-coached team. They've got an elite number one receiver in George Pickens. They've got a really good tight end. I mean, they've got some pieces there. Maybe Russ has a second or third act renaissance here for the Steelers, but he just looked like he was more comfortable in that offense than what he ever looked in Denver. It just, for whatever reason, it just didn't work out.
Well, just real quick, I don't know if you made a prediction on this game. Like, I'm being honest. I'm glad we had you on today, Corbin, because Seattle is one of those teams that I feel like we're learning. We need to learn a lot more about. What's your read on this game coming up Sunday?
I think that this is going to be one of those barn burners with a lot of points on the board. I think Buffalo is going to be able to move the ball. I think Seattle, the way that their balanced offense looked last week, they're going to have all their hands on deck. Maybe not DK, but again, I think there's a good chance Metcalf's going to try to play in this game. But I just think that both these teams have plenty of weapons. I think they both can run and pass the football. I think the defenses have some concerns with injuries still that they're both dealing with. I think it's going to be one of those games that really comes down to who's got the football last. Could determine who ends up winning this one. Even with the weather playing, Geno Smith has historically played pretty solid in rain. He's used to doing that. Josh Allen, with his ability, he's played in snow and rain. I think this is going to be a game with a lot of points.
You can hear the Locked On Seahawks podcast on the free-to-download Odyssey app and wherever you get your shows. Corbin, let everybody else know about all the work that you're doing here leading up to kickoff on Sunday. Where can we get your work?
Yeah, you can listen to Locked On Seahawks 5 or 6 days a week. We're on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast, subscribe for free. And then all my written work is on Seahawks on SI, and that's at si.com/NFL/Seahawks.
Enjoy your work, Corbin. Thanks so much. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Let's do this again.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it. Corbin Smith, the Locked On Seahawks podcast, there. Learn more about the Bills' opponent on Sunday afternoon.
The analogy that is running through my head about this game, and we've all been there, hey, got to get the brakes fixed, or I got to get this, something fixed in my car. The transmission is probably a better analogy. Or the leaky roof. We got to get that done before the bad weather. Hey, we've been living dangerously with our kicker, and if it's going to be a tit-for-tat game, touchdown, 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 missed kick along the way.
You're worried that
this is going to be the Tyler Bass game. Does it not feel like that?
You're worried that Tyler Bass is going to lose his job because of his play in the game in Seattle.
We've been identifying this, and it hasn't come down to that.
All right, so if we're predicting headlines for Monday, Tyler Bass.
Yeah.
The Tyler Bass game. If it's rainy, if the elements are in play. Yeah, that checks out. That would make sense. I mean, I guess your hope is that against Tennessee last weekend that he maybe gained some of that confidence back. He wasn't asked to do much, but what he was asked to do, he handled with ease. That's interesting. It could come down to a kicker's leg, and Tyler Bass might cost you this game.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, why do the Seahawks, why do they have this losing streak? You run against them. And why didn't Atlanta run against them? Well, maybe they're starting to figure this out a little bit, but that would be a hope.
Let's get to happy hour next on the Fan Rochester. Happy hours for you. You can join us at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN. Lots to unpack from our conversation just there with Corbin Smith of the Locked On Seahawks podcast. Also, Dan Fates, 13 WAM Sports, and BuffaloPlus.com. We'll recap the Bills' injury report from practice today. That's all on the way. Next on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening. HD2 Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Terrell Bernard and Curtis Samuel were the only two Bills not to practice today. Everyone else was either full or limited. AJ Epinesa on Geno Smith.
He's leading the league in passing yards or something like that. So he's obviously very talented. He's been in the league a long time, and he's just like one of those quarterbacks that if you don't take care of him early or put hits on him early, he's going to be able to survey the field and just kind of pick what he wants. So we got to get after him quick.
Bills and Seahawks, our coverage on The Fan will begin at noon on Sunday. Week 8 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Rams and Vikings. Puka Nacua to play for the Rams. TJ Hawkinson will not play for Minnesota. Got the Orange tonight. Syracuse playing at Pittsburgh. The Amherst coming off a 6-1 win over Cleveland. Same two teams in Ohio coming up on Saturday night. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Guys, we got the Bills going up against Geno this week. It's going to be a good one. I think Buffalo wins the game, but you look at the Bills this year, and I'm sure you guys, I mean, you know, like, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat, right? Their wins are all against teams that have a losing record.
Good football team, well coached as well.
Mike Danger.
It'll be fun. I think this is a sneaky tough game for the Bills. I mean, you could think the way the Bills have steamrolled a bad Titans team that they should have this momentum, and maybe McDermott's defense is too much for Geno Smith to unpack, but there are some significant injuries.
Gene Battaglia.
It's a game where, all right, if the Bills are healthy and the Bills do what they're supposed to do, they should win this game. I think we all can kind of agree, but I'm concerned about the linebackers, and that will continue to be my concern. Number 2 is, does Leslie Frazier know where the bodies are buried when it comes to how to defend Josh Allen?
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Oh, look at this. Before we close up shop at 6, making his first visit into the sports bar of the season, RIT men's hockey coach Wayne Wilson stopping by.
That would not be correct, Mike Danger. You were golfing last Thursday.
He was here on Thursday.
Yeah, yep. So, but this
Thursday visits, yes.
Yeah, well, this is last week was at the Blue Cross. That was sold out. It's Colgate coming up this week. You know, literally Colgate, and I should know this. I will have to. They have a player from Italy. Should that worry us here?
Of course, it should worry you. 'Cause he's Italian. Somebody's gonna get a broken kneecap before they hit the ice. Okay, well, make sure we ask Coach Wilson about that. Are we worried about the Italian that Colgate's rostering? Are we worried that he's going to come in and try to whack any of your players before the game starts?
So, yeah, Joe Capogreco to have the Colgate hockey update coming up Sunday morning.
Joe Capogreco's behind the bench for Colgate.
Hey.
He's in charge of the power play. It's good. RIT men's hockey coach Wayne Wilson, I stand corrected, stopping by later on this hour.
Isn't that like this time of year, though? Like, you weren't here last Thursday. That might have been like last month. It was only 1 week ago.
I know.
Like,
and God, week 8 of the NFL starts tonight.
Stop. I want it to last forever. I don't know.
I'm with you,
no,
man. It's such a fun ride.
Be gone. No.
It's such a fun ride. And tonight we get the Thursday night game that might actually be like a decent Thursday night game, competitive, two teams. I mean, one that I think has surprised many people in how they've performed through 7 weeks of the season. Another who is getting healthier and maybe just in time to, well, we'll see. I mean, I think depending on the outcome of this game tonight, you see what the Rams are going to be for the rest of the season. If they lose tonight, yeah, then they're probably looking towards the future.
They win tonight. They're saying, hey, we're only one game behind first place Seattle. So I want to know, where did the talk of Cooper Kupp, where did the talk of Matthew Stafford, where did these stories originate from? Whose agenda was this? Could have been just Amazon's agenda. Oh, by the way, we have the Rams. You kind of forgot about the Rams. They have some talented players, but make sure you tune in Thursday night.
Right.
No World Series Thursday night. The NBA, they already opened up. Watch Amazon Thursday night.
Yeah,
football.
well, there's compelling storylines off the field, and I think that there's a lot of talent on the field. I mean, you don't have to ask me twice to watch a game with Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. I think it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. And plus, I think you'll get less than grumpy Al because it's in L.A., and that means Al doesn't have to travel far, and he's probably not going to be grumpy. He won't be in as bad of a mood as he tends to be on Thursday nights when there's a lot of officiating involved and there's he's in a stadium that he doesn't like. Although this is the stadium where Al got really grumpy a couple of years ago. Do you remember this?
It's hard to tell what the crowd is right now. I think mainly Raiders a little bit, but you have a PA announcer here who incessantly screams whose house, and he wants them to say, no, I hate it. He wants them to say Rams house, but as far as the Raiders are concerned, well, this is kind of like their Airbnb.
I hate it.
So grumpy.
Okay. I think you could say two things are true. What he's saying is right. I don't like it either. It is a little obnoxious, the whose house thing. It's a little manufactured, but okay, you didn't have to come across that grumpy.
What's more manufactured, Rams house or hashtag Saberhood?
Oh, it's hashtag Saberhood.
Terrible.
It's disgusting. You are not a real Saber fan if you're doing that. Saber reporters, stop doing that. Nobody calls it Saberhood.
Doing it because it's an easy way to get your information. I mean, it's just search engine optimization, I believe.
I guess you have to do that. You just can't do hashtag Sabres, hashtag Saberhood. One note from the NFL, and I can pass this along because I guess everybody's okay. I think this courtesy of 9 News in Denver. Denver Bronco wide receiver Josh Reynolds and another man were injured in a shooting Friday morning in Denver. This after they were leaving a strip club at 3 a.m.
Wait. Hold up. NFL players going to strip clubs? Leaving at 3 a.m. during the season? This never happens.
It took your breath away, didn't it?
It really did. I thought you liked me. I should be sitting down. I could have hurt myself. He's okay.
He's okay.
Shot, but okay.
Shot, but okay. Yeah, I guess.
I mean, it's crazy to me to think that, like, Ricky Pearsall was shot, and he's their healthiest receiver right now, the 49ers. The rookie wide receiver was shot.
Shot Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, and he's their healthiest wide receiver at this very moment. It's crazy. I guess taking a bullet just doesn't put fear of God into you anymore. It doesn't really mean it. No. Oh, you can take a bullet. It's okay. All right, take a bullet, get back out there, rub some dirt on it. You'll be all right.
Well, it wasn't okay for Plaxico Burress. I guess it all depends. Right. So.
Hey, everybody. Welcome on in to the Golden Stallion here, Mile High. And I see Josh Reynolds. What are you doing over there, champ? Make sure you get home early. Don't stay out until 3 a.m. Hey, Plaxico Burress is in the Champagne Room. Plaxico Burress in the Champagne Room. Don't forget, Cinnamon Stage 6. Cinnamon Stage 6.
The report doesn't list the name of the strip club, which that's...
What did I come up with there?
No.
I called it the Golden Stallion.
No, this is Shotgun Willie's.
Shotgun Willie's.
Boy, you got shot at Shotgun Willie's.
The strip club's name is Shotgun Willie's. That deserves a round of applause. Maybe don't go to the strip club during football season. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your spare time. But, it's football season. Getting shot at a strip club during football season. 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he was having a grand old time. Well, glad he's okay. Those used to be common occurrences. It felt like stories like this used to plague the Buffalo Bills. Didn't happen often, like where you just always there was like so many like bizarre, especially like
Adolphus Washington with the gun at the theme park. That was a weird one.
How about Cyrus Kwanjo?
Oh.
How about that?
Cyrus Kwanjo after a bad trip and he's half naked in a field.
Just weird stuff.
Zay Jones being right at the top.
Maybe it still happens, but we definitely don't hear about it. It doesn't get the publicity that it used. The Zay Jones one was bizarre. That was on McDermott's clock. I mean, we could still say like, oh no, bizarre things have happened with Sean McDermott.
Well, the Bills moved off quickly from Shaq Lawson. This has been reported other places. This happened last offseason, but Shaq Lawson was in a lounge area where there was a shooting. He had nothing to do with it, but that's a bad look.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's a reason why they moved off him.
Well, glad he's okay. The Bills are preparing for a trip to Seattle to take on the Seahawks in the late afternoon window on Sunday. We learn more about Seattle from Corbin Smith. The Locked On Seahawks podcast joined us last hour. And Dan Fates, who joined us in the 3 o'clock hour, was kind of surprised that we were talking earlier this week about when the season could be locked up for the Buffalo Bills.
Was he making fun of our medium here? I felt that was like, because he's saying like indirectly.
Great sports talk radio.
Yeah, like you guys are being really hot takey. I'm like, no, I'm being honest.
I'm going to say if Fates is saying that that's great sports talk radio, I'm going to take him at his word for that and say thank you.
Yeah.
That's a compliment. I appreciate it.
We are great sports radio.
We should add it to the wall of morale. We put Dan Fates up there right next to Syracuse Athletic Director John Wildhack.
You guys are doing a great job up there, so the Rochester market's lucky to have you guys.
Thank you, John.
Wow, can we have more? Do you have more morale?
I have a little bit, yeah.
I listen to you every day. I have business that puts me on the road this time of day, so I catch at least 2/3 of your show. Every part of it I love. You guys do an incredible job. You stand right up there with anybody that does this nationally, as far as I'm concerned.
I need to isolate Dan saying this is great sports talk radio. I think we add it to our list of morale.
Somebody needs to tell you guys you're doing a hell of a job, man. Please don't go anywhere. I'm going to hunt you down because I'm hooked on your show now. So just keep up the great work.
No, it was years ago. Where are we going? Don't go anywhere? Where are we going? That's hilarious to me. Don't go anywhere. Where are we? Where are Gino and I going?
Okay. Danger married the girl from Greece. I also married a girl from Greece too, and I'm not talking about the country. So
if you know, you know.
Yeah,
if you marry the girl from Greece, you're not leaving.
No.
That's a pact. You're making a pact for life. You're not going anywhere. Appreciate the kind words. And I think, Dan, we're talking about it because it crosses our mind, and I don't think it's out of bounds to look at the schedule as you approach week 8 and say, we play in a bad division.
That's it. Like, who is going to be the team that rises up? Really, the Jets all of a sudden are going to figure this out? Like
the Jets are going to figure it out. Meanwhile, I love this. I love the idea because Robert Saleh, who's been, of course, let go from the New York Jets, is now working with Green Bay. He's a defensive consultant, I want to say, with the Packers, and he's been spotted in Green Bay now, and he's around the facility, and he's around the team.
Actually, he is got a fluid one. They're insisting he's going to help out the offense.
Oh, good. Well, whatever the case may be, visualize this, if you will. Visualize Green Bay winning a Super Bowl and Robert Saleh winning a Super Bowl while Aaron Rodgers winning a Super Bowl in Green Bay while Aaron Rodgers is stuck with the New York Jets.
Oh, even you, the Bears fan,
I want to cry. It makes me cry a little bit.
Would love to see that.
Yeah, it makes me cry a little bit. I think it would be fantastic.
Call us anytime, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. There are certain callers that we clear the dance floor for. We welcome back Adam and Irondequoit.
That's our guy.
What's going on, fellas? Hey, don't have a lot of smoke today. You know what's funny is I listened to the show through YouTube and went to tune in and happened to catch an old video. I thought it was live, and I'm like, oh, I can't have my take because they're already screaming about what I was going through from 11 months ago out on McDermott. Let me tell you a little story so I can preface where I am with this. It's more for car guys or car people, if you will. Probably about 3 years ago, I needed a new car, and I went and I took a look at a Chevy Equinox, and it was a top of the line. Every bell, buzzer, whistle, even the fancy paint. We also looked at a used X5 BMW. Now, the Chevy's really nice, and it, by the way, is what I ended up buying because it was less expensive. Mm-hmm. But when you get in the BMW, it's a BMW. It may not have all the bells, buzzers, and whistles, and it may not be the top of the line for where it is, but it's still a BMW. I feel like we have the top of the line Chevy Equinox in Buffalo. And it's just, at the end of the day, we don't have the logo. It's not there. And this season, I know it's going okay and we don't have the same talent, but these echoes, they seem to come 13 seconds, 12 men.
How many times do you have to tell defenders to knock the ball down? It's like the best way to beat the Bills is to just throw Hail Marys because you know the defenders will never do the right thing. And then 3 passes from the end. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. How many games has Josh Allen lost for us with the ball in his hands? I can name one, and it was a few weeks ago. 3 passes from the end zone. I'm just, to me, I said last year, Bill Belichick is not the greatest head coach of all time. He's not. I stand by that. I'll die on that hill. But he's still a pretty darn good coach. And I'll tell you one thing that Bill Belichick has never done. He's never made bonehead mistakes. He's never thought that his quarterback was so great that you shouldn't do the smart thing and run the ball to get some timeouts spent. Right? If he's supposed to be the defensive guru, how come it's the defense that always seems to be what's letting us down? Even when 13 seconds, there was no major injuries on that team. So I like McDermott. I'm glad that he changed the culture in Buffalo forever, got us on this winning streak. But at the end of the day, I think we all have to admit that Sean McDermott is what happens when you order Bill Belichick from Wish. I'm out.
Hey, you want to sweeten the pot for your Bill Belichick bet, the box wine bet?
Tell me. What do you?
Well, I mean, you just hearing Adam speak,
Yeah.
like, what if Bill Belichick came to coach the Bills? I'm just saying, it's not going to happen.
Oh,
but,
dude, we will take calls. You will see those takes. I'm going to say when this Bills season ends badly. You could say they got a chance to win the Super Bowl. Like, okay, to me, the roster isn't there. I hope I'm wrong on this. But when we get to the end and we do the blame assessment, see, let me compare it to the Mets. The Mets exceeded expectation, satiated. The expectation now is for the Bills, how are you going to get over that hump? And we've been having this conversation from 2020. That was the initial digs looking at the confetti. To 2021, that was 13 seconds. To 2022, where allegedly somebody got drunk the night before, and that cost you against the Bengals, and maybe there was also something else happening that upset Stephon Diggs. To last year. Like, how many times? What is it going to take?
The reality could be that Sean McDermott is Marty Schottenheimer. He's good enough to get you to a certain point, but can't get you all the way there. And or if you look at this in an even longer view, maybe he is just like a disciple of Andy Reid, somebody who just can't get over, gets in a new situation, a new circumstance, a new environment, and then thrives. I don't know what is holding him back. But to Adam's point, and we haven't been very critical of him, at least the day after the Texans loss, I wasn't here. So I imagine that day there was a lot of bullets flying around Sean McDermott. That was an ugly day, I imagine. I wasn't here for that day.
You were on a plane coming
But I
back,
imagine if I was here, I would probably be ranting much like Adam was ranting about how they lost that game. It's not when you lose the game, it's how you lose the game, right? Like a game that you can win, but you lose it in spectacular fashion.
That was the game danger. Like, wait a second, how did they get the ball back? You let Houston get the ball back?
Yeah.
That should have been overtime, everything.
And you're not even in that position if your defense doesn't make the plays that they make. I mean, they made some good plays down the stretch. The second half of that game was far superior for the Bills than the first half of the game. You have one letdown on defense, which rarely happens, but it was enough to get Houston the win. And McDermott's going to take all the blame, and I think he accepts that. I think he accepted it. I think he took the bullets after that loss, which, dare I say, is refreshing for him. It's growth for him because we didn't hear that after 13 seconds.
No, it was the opposite, and that always upset me. It still sticks in my craw. It's an execution problem. No kidding. Who's responsible for the execution?
Yeah.
Ultimately, like the irony here is he's an Andy Reid disciple. What does Reid say all the time?
Starts with me.
I gotta
Starts
do a
with me.
better job. Like that wasn't it. Maybe he's finally learning this. You can say, hey, can I be Mr. Brightside here? Maybe he's Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy needed a second act there in Indianapolis, but he couldn't get over in Tampa. What if he just kind of sticks with it and finally gets over the hump here?
I'll say this. For as bad as some of the losses have been, he's not going anywhere, guys. He's not going anywhere. He's safe. He will be safe. They're not going to move on from him. Imagine, 13 seconds is about as disastrous a loss as you can imagine. But imagine the most disastrous loss you can imagine to the worst team in the league, and he's not losing his job over that. The body of work is too strong. And the thing that Adam mentioned, what he has done with the culture and how he kind of reversed what this franchise was over the course of his tenure isn't something that the Pagulas are going to forget. It's certainly not something Brandon Beane is going to over.
No, and furthermore, what leads to a departure when things, they're going well, you're winning. Sometimes it's a clash of personalities. There's no power play between Beane and McDermott. There's no power play between Allen and McDermott.
The only thing that you can look out for, which I don't think you're going to ever see out of a Sean McDermott coach team, is a team quitting on their coach. And McDermott, to his credit, he finds guys that might not be the most talented, but mentally they're not guys that are going to quit. They don't have that in their makeup. That's not the kind of guy that he's bringing in to be a part of this team. The guys that would say, there's a lot of Chargers that had no problem quitting on their coach last season. And I don't think they're going to do that with Harbaugh. And I don't think that there's anybody on this Bills roster that would be like, oh, yeah, we're going to quit on this guy. That's the only way we can. It's just not going to happen. He's safe. He will be out there when the stadium opens up, when the new stadium opens up. He's not going anywhere, folks.
Okay, to what degree safe? Safe as a kitten?
Yes.
Safe as a kitten.
Yes. Is that still why do we say safe as a kitten, by the way?
I don't know.
It's kind of like there's more than one way to skin a cat. Like, that's just a weird saying. Why do we say safe as a kitten?
Because you're going to take care of the kitten, and the kitten. Nobody's going to throw the kitten out into the wild. I don't know.
He's safe. Is my point.
Safe.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. So while I'll listen to anybody, and God, I love Adam Adam, call more often, dude. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate that.
He's serving our country. Thank you, Adam.
God bless him.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
And I'll listen to anybody that wants to be critical of anybody on the Bills. Even Josh Allen, God forbid. Josh Allen had a bad game against Houston a few weeks ago. I don't know. I mean, statistically, it wasn't good. I mean, he came alive in the second half, but it just wasn't a good game because he didn't have receivers. It wasn't whatever it was, he just wasn't good. Be critical of these guys. Don't be afraid. I love that Adam's still critical of Sean McDermott, and we're talking about a team that has a 3.5 game lead in their division.
This is
the best.
That's where we're at. If you want to give us a call, I would suggest after shots because we have Wayne Wilson, our RIT men's hockey coach, coming up in last call today. So we'll get the shots here. Some of the stories here, Danger. We have an investigation going on in the NBA. What is this all about? We'll explain. College football quarterback calling it a career. We'll tell you why. And in the week of DUIs, this is a really weird one from our friends north of the border.
Round of shots on the way. RIT men's hockey coach Wayne Wilson before 6 o'clock. Stay in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan.
Let your appliances know who's the real MVP. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Terrell Bernard and Curtis Samuel are the only two Bills not to practice today. Everyone else was either full or limited. Josh Allen on the Seahawks defensive personnel.
Couple really good corners. Obviously familiar face in T-Dot. He's playing really good football. I think their D-line is playing very, very solid defense as well. Tough team to run against. They've been a high-effort group. They've been making some plays, so we're going to have our hands full.
Our coverage on the Fan Rochester will begin at noon on Sunday. Week 8 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Rams and the Vikings in L.A. Puka Nacua is going to play for the Rams. T.J. Hawkinson will not play for Minnesota. They're hopeful he'll be back in Week 9. Syracuse football in action tonight. The Orange playing at Pittsburgh. The Amherst beating up Cleveland 6-1. Same two teams in Ohio coming up on Saturday night. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Happy Hour continues with the round of shots in the sports bar.
Danger, we have an investigation in the NBA because the NBA takes this very, very seriously. Now, as you know, Joel Embiid didn't play in the opener last night against Milwaukee for a reason that they listed as left knee injury management. Embiid will also not dress for games upcoming against Toronto and Indiana. Embiid recently telling ESPN that if he had to guess, he will never play back-to-backs for the rest of his career.
Yeah, that's the quote that I don't like. Sorry, pal. I mean, I hate that. I hate that you're already projecting what the rest of your career looks like. Unless you're telling me that you might as well be telling me your knee is so bad you just can't play in the NBA.
So this is the part I don't understand. Well, then why don't you limit his minutes then and make sure he's out there for key sequences or something? Because
manage his minutes.
Manage the minutes in a different way rather than just kind of give him off.
It's a shame because I love the player. I think when he's on the court, he's one of the best, if not the best guy in the league. He's so much fun to watch, and it's ridiculous to see a big man do the things that he does. But, man, this sucks. I want to trust the NBA. I want to trust that we're going to get the best product possible night in and night out. And with load management and quotes like this, I can't take it seriously. I'm sorry.
No, get yourself right. And if you're good enough to play in the Olympics, for crying out loud.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
No. 4 games in the NBA tonight. Boston at Washington. The Celtics already with a win under their belt. The doubleheader on TNT has the Mavericks opening at home against Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs. That's going to be followed by Oklahoma City and Denver.
All right, a little fun lineup there.
Yeah. NC State quarterback Grayson McCall, he's called it a career. In his latest after his latest concussion, he decided to walk away from the game in a statement that reads in part, "Brain specialist, my family and I have come to the conclusion that it's in my best interest to hang the cleats up." McCall writing on Instagram he hopes to get into coaching.
You know, I kind of like that move. I think that sounds like an intelligent move from I mean, I don't know what Grayson McCall's pro prospects were, or I'm not versed on his statistical ability, his statistics or his abilities on the field, but if you have concerns about what your future might be because of the head trauma that you're taking playing this game, get out. I mean, we've seen plenty of NFL players do it. It's like NFL players that did it, we all kind of understood why they did what they did, and it feels like less and less of them are doing that now. I don't have any problem at all with this guy hanging it up and looking forward to his future with hopefully a clear head.
Here in the sports bar, we are in favor of technology in sports, certainly to help officiating. So where we were paying attention to, say, ABS, we're going to be paying attention, Danger, to be something being tested out in the Arizona Fall League. Automated balls and strikes first. Now we have a system that is going to call if a batter checked his swing.
Wow.
The check swing. Can we agree it's one of the most objective calls in sports?
For sure.
Yeah. Now teams will be able to challenge the on-field check swing to see if it actually crossed the 45-degree threshold from home plate.
All right, so that is the threshold, 45 degrees, but it's something that every time I feel like, it's like for a period of time in the NFL, like, what is a catch? Yeah. We didn't know what a catch was. I still, like, to my eye, I have a hard time saying, oh, yeah, he checked his swing there. Oh, no, he went around. For the life of me, I couldn't tell you what one looks like versus the other.
Yeah, I always kind of thought it was if you broke your wrist.
That's
you know,
right.
But it's actually if the bat crosses home plate. So this is pretty easy technology, is it not? Just put the sensors around home plate. Voila, there it is. There's your. Like, we're going to get to a time in our lifetime, I think, where we'll still have an umpire. A umpire, just to make sure, and everything else. And is anybody going to be upset about
Making
it?
sure all the computers are working and
Yeah.
all the sensors are in the right places. The only thing I don't like about this is I don't want baseball to become overrun with stoppages for challenges.
Yeah.
You know what? The NFL this season, replay assist has been I'll welcome it. I think it's been great. Every time that they've used replay assist to get a call right on the field.
Yeah, don't waste any time.
You're not wasting anybody's time. You don't have to worry about the coach challenging it. Like, replay assist has been awesome this year in the NFL. And when they get the line to gain technology right that they tried in the preseason, that was a historic failure. It was just awful. That'll be great too. But get it right. Use the technology and get it right, and let's get on with it.
Finally, we've had this string of stories regarding DUIs. Last week we had Jay Cutler. We had Eddie Lacy, the former Packers running back, with extreme DWI. Now this from Canada. Police in Quebec say a 25-year-old man arrested after he drove a Zamboni into the boards at a rink in Chelsea while cleaning the rink here. Turns out there's actually video. This actually happened. You can go look it up. It certainly makes it look terrible for this driver. The ref comes over. You don't have the audio danger, so you really can't tell what they're saying, but the ref's skating away, and the Zamboni driver goes right in the corner and instead of turning right like he's supposed to, he goes straight into the boards, causing all this damage.
What's shocking to me is that people actually drive Zambonis sober. I thought it was a prerequisite that you had to be at least a six-pack in. Every Zamboni driver I knew growing up in Minnesota, every one that I knew was the burnout in high school or the guy that was, the old creepy guy that was always drunk. It was one of two guys. It was always the kid who was working part-time at the rink, but he was the burnout. He was the guy that was completely fried throughout all of high school, or the old creepy drunk dude that, never said anything to anybody, but just was always sauced. Those were the two Zamboni drivers that I remember growing up.
Yeah, I'm well, if you're going to bring back your where to have a beer power rankings, where lawn beer, shower beer, beach beer, anytime beer, like, is there such a thing as a Zamboni beer?
I think that's a power move.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of how great would it be to kick your feet up while you're steering with one hand and a beer in the other, going around the rink in a Zamboni? I mean, you're king of the world, man. You're Leonardo DiCaprio on the Titanic if you're doing that. Yeah, that's what's shocking to me is that I thought most Zamboni drivers were sauced. Well, I guess this guy maybe took it a little too far. Yeah. That's shots in the sports bar. We're going to stay on the ice and talk to RIT men's hockey coach Wayne Wilson next for closing time on The Fan.
You're listening You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We got to play Eye of the Tiger here if we're going to put Coach on here.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a survivor there, Danger.
I didn't know that we were taking requests here in the Sports Bar. I can make things happen, Gino. Don't worry. If you want a little Eye of the Tiger for Coach, we will give you some Eye of the Tiger for Coach and get you fired up as the RT men's hockey team is back on the campus of RIT, back at the Policini.
Yeah, it's been too long. I'm fired up, Danger. Head coach Wayne Wilson joining us. There we go. Coach, how are you today? How's practice been this week?
Great, thanks. And, it's good to hear that song. And it's actually better to say we're going to be home. We were home, I guess, to a certain degree last weekend as well, but we still had to find a bus to get on and travel to the game. But 2 home games, it seems like it's long overdue, but we're welcoming it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Like I heard a record amount of season tickets has been sold, and that's what will happen when you win a championship as you did in league play last year. But, I mean, what kind of crowds do we expect out there Friday and Saturday?
Yeah, I think we're going to have 2 really good crowds, and hopefully weather permitting, we get more walk-up crowd as well. But, yeah, we're looking forward to it. Like, we just haven't had a regular weekend where we played kind of the same opponent twice, particularly at home. We did with Merciers, but we're Clarkson, St. Lawrence. We're a single game with Bowling Green. Like I said, we've been on the road a lot, but that's also been good for us, I think, to a certain degree. And then we will hit the road for our first, not our first league play, but the first game with Niagara on Wednesday after that. So it's haven't had a lot of league games either. So, but this is good for us to keep learning about our team, and we're looking forward to the challenge of Colgate.
Yeah. Before we talk about Colgate, the last word on Bowling Green, and for folks who might have missed it, you took them to overtime. The 3-on-3 doesn't go your way. That'll happen in overtime. What did you learn about your team in this game? Because I certainly learned from watching that you may have found your goaltender here, at least in Jakub Kurbacek here.
Yeah, I thought Kuba is what we call him, and he's played well in all of his games now. I thought we just thought we'd test him out in a big crowd there too, having 2 good games and then putting him in that environment. We were interested to see how he was going to do, and he responded obviously very, very well. I think the good thing is we gave up 1 goal in regulation. Unfortunately, we need to score more than 1 goal. And that's really where we're at right now a little bit. In all our games, we win a 3-2 game against Clarkson with them scoring a late goal, another tight game with St. Lawrence and lose that in overtime, and then 2 tight games with Mercyhurst. So low-scoring games, we need to generate some offense, and that's we'll be still missing Matt Weil. We'll still be missing Kevin Mark-Noren, a couple of guys that should help us. We lost Grady Hobbs, but we'll be back this weekend late in the I think that was in the second period, actually. Yeah. So we lost him in the second period. So, we're not as deep as a team. And when I say that, probably from an experience standpoint, we've got a bunch of new guys on the power play, but missing a key power play player in Matt Wild. So we're not whole yet, but we've also seen the emergence of someone like Michael Giannakis on defense, Simone Isabel up front, Nick Caffarelli up front as well as a transfer student. So, some other people are emerging here early, and I think once we get our full team together, of course, you never can count on that. Injuries can happen anytime. I think we'll be better off it, but we'll also be heading more into league play starting in November. So our hopes is once we get to that point, I think our roster should be a little bit more solidified, but like I said, you never can know what's going to happen game by game.
The Hobbs injury, what is the timetable on that, Coach?
Hobbs will be back.
Oh, he will be back. Okay.
Yeah. So at first we thought possible dislocation. It was a kind of a deep bruise / stinger, or maybe a combination of both, where he just lost feeling in his whole hand there, and with a hit on the shoulder. And he wasn't in a lot of pain as much as he was his feeling and his strength. He had no strength to grip a stick and finish the game there. And then with each passing day, a lot of stiffness on the day after, but each day of this week made, very noticeable improvement on it. And I guess our hope with the bruise that he doesn't get nailed on it again, but he'll be able to play and should be in good shape for the weekend.
Yeah, you get Colgate here. First time since 21. You get the Raiders coming in here. And, they're from a good conference here, certainly, the ACAC. What are you seeing from this team here, Coach?
Well, we've had great games with them in the past, so I think, a little bit of what we've already seen with the St. Lawrences and the Clarksons, a one-goal win against Clarkson, a one-goal overtime loss to St. Lawrence, Bowling Green, a one-goal loss there in overtime as well. I don't know if I'd expect much different there, unless the game gets crazy one way or another. So I think it's going to be a very competitive game. I think it's we've got to take advantage of being at home in front of our fans first couple games and just keep growing. Our young guys just got to keep growing and getting better. And I think some of them have played quite well for us. And like I said, we just need to, like I said earlier, get everyone back and kind of position everyone right. Maybe some guys are playing a little higher in the lineup than they need to just yet for young guys in particular. And but that's all part of the process.
And Coach, finally, I'm just looking for your advice here because I'm excited to call this game. There's another game that's going to be going on in Wisconsin at the same time. Let's just say theoretically, I'm doing a broadcast with this guy who might be interested in this college football game. How do you keep your color commentator and his focus on what's actually on the ice, on his job, actually?
Well, sometimes, some people get a little drifty. You got to keep them from drifting off there and being distracted, and I don't, that might be tough. With this individual, anyways, he just kind of bleeds blue there on that, and I worry about him at some point. But he's feeling good about himself, maybe too good. But once he starts playing the big boys, that may bring him back down to earth.
Wow, there we go. Wayne Wilson, 7:05 for RIT men's hockey, and then the 5:05 puck drop on Saturday. Coach, appreciate your time and good luck this weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you.
There's head coach Wayne Wilson, RIT men's hockey team at home. Colgate, the opponent this weekend. You're excited for that call?
I am.
Back at the Gene.
Back at the Gene Policini. Yeah. I wish we had some games there, and then we went downtown. It was fine, but Saturday night, it is when you get and you were there for the Amerks when it was sold out against Syracuse.
Yeah.
It's a great barn when it's full.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's electric. It feels. Well, we feel like a major league town, even though we're a minor league town. And I know Blue Cross Arena, as far as the size of the arena, is not what you would compare to a major league arena. But, man, it feels good. It's nice to have a sold-out arena for an event like Brick City last weekend.
Yeah, and it was just a beautiful Saturday. I mean, the weather was awesome, so you saw a lot of orange walking around downtown and, going over to restaurants and whatnot. That's what we love about that.
Very cool. Tomorrow on the show, Andy Behrens stops by from Yahoo Fantasy. We'll get your Week 8 lineups set. We'll recap. Week 8 gets underway tonight. I mean, can't believe that you've got a game tonight between the Rams hosting the Vikings, and Andy will be by to evaluate and recap everything there. Alex Brasky will get a final say on the Bills and the Seahawks from Bills Digest.
Tell you something about Alex Brasky. Okay, the Yankees clinched Saturday night. It was a great game, right? Soto with the home run, and I'm happy for Yankee fans. I don't have any ill will. So I've sent out a tweet. Hey, to my Yankee fan friends, congratulations. Good luck. Alex, I saw him at the stadium. He's like, you know what? If the Mets won, I would never put out such a tweet like that. I'm like, really? Well, that's the difference between me and you. He's like, I hate the Mets. I'm like, you can't hate the Mets. What? I hate the Mets. Okay, well, just come back it up on the air. So
how do you My brother-in-law's a Packer fan. I mean, like, when they won the Super Bowl, I hosted. He was in my house for the Super Bowl that the Packers won when they beat the Steelers.
Aren't you happy for him?
I was kind of happy for him. Yeah.
Right.
Right. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, Green Bay sucks. I just want to say Green Bay sucks. I want to finish every sentence that I talk. When I talk to him, I want to finish every sentence with Green Bay sucks.
If you're a Yankee fan, the team that gets under skin, I shouldn't even have to say it's Boston. Do you not forget you were up 3-0? Do you not know the history? Boston is the answer. It's not the Mets. And Met fans are like, it's Philadelphia or Atlanta. Anyways, Alex Brasky will give us some Bills news.
The very petty Alex Brasky stopping by the sports bar tomorrow afternoon at 4:25. And then I know we have some other special guests joining us tomorrow afternoon as well. If you missed any of today's show, you can get it in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Search out the sports bar there or wherever you get your shows, your podcasts, your guest appearances today from Dan Fates, Corbin Smith, the Locked On Seahawks podcast. You can get both of those now wherever you find your shows. And a big thank you to everybody like Adam from Irondequoit, who checked out the stream on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester today as well. You can always watch the sports bar and catch up on anything you may have missed on YouTube and also on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. JR Sport Brief next. Enjoy your night. Thanks for listening. The Fan Rochester.